Last meeting.
You guys can stop there.
No, no. Okay. Okay.
It's a Democratic Party. But everything. Fix that spin out of it. Didn't help me, it does.
Yeah.
You know, he was on the commission. He wrote the report. Yeah, I read that the other day.
Sorry, friends, we are having, we're expecting one other person to make our quorum, and that's our problem. Well, good morning, everyone. We're gonna start a historic joint meeting of the Probation Oversight Committee and the Sheriff Civilian Oversight Committee here at Magic Johnson Recreation Center, which is a really beautiful facility. So whoever booked us here, thank you. And we are going to take up the issue of school resource deputies. And it's an area where we have some overlapping oversight or information sharing responsibilities between our two commissions. And so it really makes sense that we are here together to talk about the issues. And I just want to say, in my real life, as the executive director of Loyola's Center for Juvenile Law and Policy and a working lawyer representing young people in the juvenile justice system, this is such an important topic. And so I really thank our friends from Probation Oversight Commission for joining with all of us to talk about the best way to deal with school resource deputies and all the issues that they confront in our school system. And I know there's a variety of opinions about whether we should have school resource deputies in the schools, but the reality is that right now they're there. And so how do we do it to mitigate the harm to young people? And that's really what I guess our meeting is going to focus on. Like when people have conflict or feel that they've been mistreated, what's the best way for them to do that? And so I'm going to open the floor to the POC chair, Eduardo Mundo, who will provide an overview of the meeting. And I hope everyone on both sides will have a frank discussion of the issues and concerns that are raised by Eduardo and his crew. So thank you.
Thank you, Chair Kennedy, and welcome everybody. My name is Eduardo Mundo, Chair of the Probation Oversight Commission, or the POC as we are known. The POC is a civilian oversight body that was created in 2020 to guide the Los Angeles County Probation Department toward widespread and long overdue reform and to ensure compliance with the Board of Supervisors' goals and directives for the department. The POC works to enhance the overall care, safety, and well-being of all individuals interacting with probation, including youth, adults, and their families, employees, and community members of the County of Los Angeles. The POC is the liaison between the Board of Supervisors, probation, and the members of the community advocating for reform. Our recommendations to the probation department are guided by research, peer-reviewed literature, statistical trend analysis, direct observations, feedback from probation employees, and most importantly, the lived experience of people who have interacted with this system. The POC strives for transparent oversight and robust community engagement of all stakeholders in this process. As Chair Kennedy mentioned, we are going to hear from various speakers on this very important topic, as our goal is to ensure that our school remain safe environments for our students while maintaining transparency and accountability in handling any complaints that may arise. Our agenda includes the following: presentation from the COC on research, analysis, and recommendations on SRD programs. Presentation from POC and, on the SRD complaint process. A discussion on proposed process for POC to track the SRD related complaints and share with the Board of Supervisors and the public. A presentation from LASD representatives on LASD's complaint process. Welcome, LASD. Thank you for joining us. And a discussion on LASD complaint process. Sean?
Thanks, Eduardo. So we're going to begin the meeting, and I'm going to have Tracy Jordan explain to the members of the public who are present how they can participate in this meeting, because public participation is one of the most important parts of these meetings.
And in WebEx, or press *3 on the phone. Each person who signs up for public comment will have 3 minutes to speak. Please note that the agenda public comment. Number 12. Now I will turn it over to PLC Executive Director Gwendolyn Julian, who will announce the public comment rules in Spanish.
Buenos días a todos. Muchas gracias por estar aquí. Nuestra reunión es una combinación de dos comisiones que es
We're having some bumps, but that's what happens when it's all live.
That's all right. I am happily embracing my inner Oprah. Voy a empezar de nuevo. Buenos días y bienvenidos a miembros de la comunidad que prefieren hacer sus comentarios en frente a nuestra reunión en español. Aceptamos comentario público aquí en persona y también de parte de las personas que están participando virtualmente por WebEx y quienes están llamando por teléfono. Ya se ha iniciado y estamos grabando la conferencia. Si le gustaría hacer un comentario público, tendría la oportunidad de hacerlo después de cada presentación y también al final de la reunión. También, si está escuchando por la conferencia en línea, tiene que oprimir la manita que está en la parte baja de la página para ponerse en la línea. Si está aquí en persona, tiene que llenar una forma y entregarla para hacer su comentario aquí personalmente. Si necesita traducción en el teléfono o aquí en persona, avísenos, podemos proveer traducción o usted puede proveer su propio traductor y le daremos el doble del tiempo para la traducción. Creo que ya es todo. Nomás avísame si quiere traducción para sus comentarios. Gracias por estar con nosotros y esperamos sus comentarios.
Okay, thank you. So we have a code of conduct at our meetings. I think POC does too. And I'm going to just summarize it by saying this. Like when we're talking about something like school resource deputies, it's a topic that everyone cares about. There are a lot of strong feelings about it. I know some people have had terrible personal experiences in their lives that are really important to hear about. But we try to be frank, honest, and hard-hitting, but also mutually respectful and professional about how we debate the issues. So I hope everyone in the room will honor that, because if we just yell at each other, just scream at each other and have ad hominem attacks, we don't get anywhere. We also have to enforce a timer, because we want everyone to be able to speak and for us to finish our agenda. We usually have 3 minutes public comment. Eduardo, is that, do you guys have a custom on your side? 2 minutes? Are you okay with 3 today? Yeah. We used to have 2 minutes and we expanded it to 3 and the sky did not fall. So we're going to try to do 3. And when your time is over, we ask that you stop speaking so that the next speaker can speak. And there's some comments here about disruption, but I don't feel like I need to do them because I don't think anyone's going to be disruptive. So I think we'll just move forward. Tracy, could you call the roll on our side?
I will now conduct the roll call for the Sheriff Civilian Oversight Commission. Chair Sean Kennedy,
Here.
Vice Chair Jamon Hicks, absent. Commissioner Robert Bonner, absent. Commissioner Irma Haggins Cooper,
Present.
Commissioner Luis S. Garcia,
Here.
Commissioner Patricia Giggins, absent. Commissioner James P. Harris,
Here.
Commissioner Hans Johnson.
He isn't here yet, but he has texted and said he's stuck in traffic and will be here any minute.
Pending his arrival, we will have a quorum at that time.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair Kennedy. Again, we will have a quorum pending his arrival.
Thank you. Ms. Jordan, please take roll for the PLC.
Thank you. I will now take roll call for the Probation Oversight Commission. Chair Eduardo Mundo,
Present.
Vice Chair Dolores Canales, absent. Commissioner Diane Terry, absent. Commissioner Frankie Carrillo,
He is on his way.
Commissioner Sean Garcia Lays, Commissioner Ashay L. Jackson, absent. Commissioner Melinda Kakiani.
Kakani,
Kakanai.
just Kakani, present.
Kakani. My apologies for mispronouncing your name. Thank you. Commissioner Samuel Lewis.
Present.
Commissioner Donald D. Meredith.
Present.
Chair Eduardo Mundo, we have a quorum.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to dive in then. Um, We are going to begin with a presentation on the SRD complaint process. We're going to start with Tracy giving a report about this commission's October 2023 report prepared by the Ad hoc Committee on the Quality of Life, which studied the Sheriff's Department's SRD program and came up with a number of recommendations, which I think the POC used and the Board of Supervisor was also presented with. So Tracy, can you start off this meeting by giving us the big picture, and then we'll dive into the details.
Thank you. Well, first and foremost, I'd like to say good morning, honorable commissioners, executive directors, and attendees. Thank you for having us here this morning. There have been various efforts by both commissions that we have here. More specifically, I will be speaking to the Sheriff Civilian Oversight Commission's efforts this morning. So we started out as a commission that strives for transparency and accountability as far as oversight of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, a commission that was created by the Board of Supervisors in 2016. You just see a number of our commissioners here before you this morning. We have been in existence, again, for a number of years. We do have 9 commissioners on our body. Our meetings are held the third Thursday of each month, so I'd like to get that out there before you in case you'd like to attend some of our meetings. If I can have the next slide, please. I will be giving you a little bit of an overview of where we will go today, just in case you want a little bit of a roadmap. We will have a little bit of an introduction. I'll give you a background of some of the things that we looked into related to school resource deputies. We'll talk a little bit about the research that we looked into. Of course, we needed to look at the community feedback. Very important to know what the community's thoughts were related to the issue of school resource deputies. We did have an assessment analysis, and ultimately we arrived at some recommendations. So we'll get to that near the end. If I can have the next slide, please. Now, when I say school resource deputies, you commonly hear them referred to as SRDs. And not only California, but I would say across the nation, we are familiar with using acronyms, right? We use acronyms for just about everything. So SRDs today when I'm referring to school resource deputies. We also tend to refer to them as SROs, which are school resource officers. They do have a number of requirements, though, things that they should actually have. They should be trained. So some of the trainings, we should see that they have school-based law enforcement as a background. They should have a crisis response training. They should be community-oriented individuals as far as their trainings. Now, you also hear about some other terms out there when I say these acronyms. You may hear of SSOs, school security officers. These are not SRDs. These are not your folks from Los Angeles County Sheriff's Departments, Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. These are the individuals that may be hired by your school districts, independently, separate and apart from Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. So they are different. Also, as far as your SRDs, they have a contract agreement between the law enforcement agency and the school district. Next slide, please. Now, a little bit of a background. Here you see a number of months and years and things that took place over a period of time. Let's look at a little bit of what transpired before we hit these months and years. Of course, there was some community outcry because there were some things taking place that they were concerned about. You had individuals that noticed that there were some high-profile incidents taking place within their very communities. They may have been experiencing what they considered to be incidents involving racial disparity in their communities, involving their loved ones, their children, involving SRD. So they had concerns. So these very concerns prompted this commission, this body, to have our quality of life ad hoc committee to look into the presence of SRDs in schools, to determine whether they were appropriately being utilized by the schools, and to look at the LASD program for SRDs. So when we look at these dates, October 2021, there was a commission meeting of our body, and there was an actual viewing or information that was presented related to the Antelope Valley schools and the concerns that were taking place as far as things involving students and SRD in their community. We had the LA County Inspector General, Max Huntsman, appear before our commission, and he provided some information generally related to concerns involving the LASD SRD program, involving the Antelope Valley area. By the time June 2022 came about, there was a board motion, and that board motion instructed the Office of Inspector General to consult with the LASD and review the SRD contacts with school districts, with LASD SRD program to identify racial disparities existing with student contacts. We then had April 2023 come about, and there was another commission meeting, and the Inspector General, Chief Deputy Daryl Williams, appeared before our commission. At that time, she summarized the Inspector General's report back to the board. Next slide, please. At that point, we then conducted research. Our commission looked into a number of things. They gathered data. They analyzed that data. There was a request for information from the LASD. We solicited public comment because it was important to hear from the public related to their concerns on this issue. We had virtual educational conference series where the public could hear virtually and provide feedback virtually. We collaborated with county stakeholders and partners, and roundtable discussions were held. Next slide, please. Here's a little bit of what some of the data reflected. We noticed that in the 1990s, there was an increase in gun violence in schools. By 1998, the LASD had initiated their SRD program. By 2015, the California Education Code 32282.1 was effective, and it involved school safety plans related to SROs and police officers on campus. By 2019, the U.S. Department of Education reported on a study that children or students felt that they had an increased fear of being attacked or harmed at school. There was additional research that existed as well, but these are a few of the things that transpired. Next slide, please. Moving further and closer to where we are today. By 2021, the National Association of School Resource Officers issued their SRO program recommendations. Some of their recommendations included that there should be agreements by and between law enforcement agencies and school districts. And those agreements should include the roles and responsibilities of SRDs, along with the expectations of when decisions are made. SRDs should also build positive relationships with the students. Let me repeat that. With the students, the staff, administrators, and the community. By 2023, the Office of Inspector General reported that in 2019-2020, the LASD had provided SRD services to 812 student contacts, more contacts with Black and Latino students. Again, there was additional research as well. Next slide, please. So what did our community members have to say? What was the feedback there? Well, of course, the youth who were impacted had something to say. The youth said SRDs are intimidating when they wear their full gear, including bulletproof vests. What else did youth have to say? SRDs make some students feel targeted for being themselves and for their appearance. What were the students' recommendations? Remove SRDs from the school campus and only have the SSOs. Offer programs to address mental health. Students felt that they could make use of other services, as well as the principals and school administrators should talk to students when issues arise. So they felt that there should be communication with them. Next slide, please. Now, of course, not only were we concerned about feedback from the students, we wanted to hear from the public as well. There was a time frame when this body, the commission, opened up a public comment time frame in both English and Spanish via social media, mass email blast, and via public meetings to hear from the public on this issue. They received more than 1,100 public comments related to the SRD programs. So some of the things that we heard from the community, well, of course, the sheriffs target us on the streets. I would be amazed to have deputies on campus. So a little bit of this and that, if you will. We want them there. We want more. We want better from them if they are there. So we heard a little bit of mixed things from the community. Additionally, we had 9 community organizations share their feedback. So what did they have to say on this issue? SRD should be not involved in the disciplinary behavior. Why would they be involved in that? Is that something they should be involved in? SRDs could disproportionately impact students of color and people with disabilities. It's a concern of the community. Also, LASD agreements with school districts are too broad. So is that something that should be further negotiated and or changed? Those were some of the concerns of the public. Next slide, please. Additional community feedback. Roundtable discussions and school district administrators provided their feedback because, again, they are involved and have a say as well. 8 school districts participated and shared feedback that included a teacher or school staff member must call the school office before an SRD is dispatched. They also felt that the parents feel safer with SRDs on campus. So yet again, you have a little bit of a mixed concern and or feedback from this population as well. Next slide, please. So let's look at the assessment and the analysis. LASD SRD program appears to meet the needs of the schools when you look at all of these different populations. However, there is a crucial need for improvement. The mere fact that it meets the needs does not mean that there is not room for improvement. So what can we do for improvement? Public access to SRD program information, involvement of SRDs on campus, strategic measures to support students and deter the use of SRDs and non-safety measures. There are a number of things. Next slide, please. We had 5 recommendations, one of which the Board of Supervisors to examine and modify LASD SRD program agreements. Number 2, LASD to collaborate with the Department of Youth Development and Office of Violence Prevention to establish a policy. 3, LASD to develop an SRD portal for LASD main public website. Next slide, please. 4, for LASD to coordinate with each assigned school to develop and improve relationships with not only the students, but the parents. And 5, to develop an annual SRD report to post to the website. It's important for individuals to know what is going on and to be able to access that information. Next slide, please. After this report was presented and completed in October of 2023 by this body, by December 19th, 2023, there was a board motion which referenced the COC's SRD report, among other things. And it authorized the Probation Oversight Commission to oversee the complaint process, which they will get further into and explain in more details after I'm done. They also, in this motion, the board instructed the executive director of the Probation Oversight Commission to submit to the board, the Sheriff Civilian Oversight Commission, and school districts a report every 180 days on complaints. Next slide, please. Lastly, I would like to say, if you'd like to know more about the Sheriff Civilian Oversight Commission, please visit our website, which you see here. You also see our phone number. This completes my presentation. At this point, I will turn it back over to the chair to introduce our next presenter. Thank you.
Thank you. Now POC Executive Director Gwendolyn Julian and Project Director Danisha Smith will provide an overview of SRD complaint process. Wendy and Danisha, please take it away.
Thank you, Chair Mundo. Good morning. I'm Wendy Julian. I'm pleased to meet all of you who are generally used to tuning into the COC meetings. I serve as the Charmaine of the POC over here. I am the Executive Director. I've been serving in this role for about 3.5 years since the launch of the Probation Oversight Commission in early 2021. As Tracy said, I'm going to share a brief background about how the Probation Oversight Commission got involved in this work and what we've been directed to do by the board. But I want to start with some words of gratitude to the Sheriff's Department for their interaction with us over the past. It's been all of the work that they've done in engaging the public and writing these reports and learning more about the process in order to improve it. And also to our colleagues at the Office of Inspector General, I think is their reports and recommendations that have really brought this issue to the forefront. The POC is new to this world of the school resource deputy issues, although the commissioners are in many ways not new. Many of them have been working on this issue, and the agencies they work for have been working on the issue for decades. So I want to share a little bit about how we got involved in this, and then Danisha will actually talk about the process. Danisha Smith, my colleague, and also Dee Jones, Dearia Jones, who have been working on building out this process as the board directed last December. We're going to receive, refer, and track complaints about LASD school resource deputies. I'll talk a little bit more about what that means and what it doesn't mean later. And then I'd like to welcome your comments and questions about this process. I'd love to take them live here. I'd love to take them online. Also, if you don't want to do that, send a message in the chat and they will give you my email and phone number and you can call me afterwards. We want to hear from you any way that you feel comfortable. Also, I want to make sure you know that attached to the agenda as a link, you will find the beautiful reports from the COC and the OIG, as well as the board motion, if you want to be able to refer to those. So the issue of school resource deputies is in many ways the main overlap between the work of the POC, LASD, and the COC. Youth who are involved with the school resource deputy and end up being arrested may end up in the custody of the probation department or under the supervision of the probation department. The role of school-based law enforcement in contributing to what is often referred to as the school-to-prison pipeline is well documented. I worked for an organization that did gang intervention and conflict resolution 25 years ago that evolved into a process of restorative justice in which we helped schools to implement restorative discipline processes and then launched a program for restorative justice diversion with Long Beach and Compton schools. So the issue of the school resource deputies, school resource officers is close to my heart and certainly is an area where the two commissions overlap. The POC has discussed this issue on a number of occasions. The commission voted last fall to support the POC's role in accepting and referring complaints. And then we supported the board's efforts that preceded the motion in December of 2023 to reach a consensus with community members and the Sheriff's Department and others, other partner agencies on the process. The board met December 19th, as Tracy explained, and unanimously voted to support a number of directives, including having the POC and County Council draft and vet a process and an ordinance change that would allow the POC to do this. Specifically during the meeting, the supervisors mentioned the POC staff's expertise on youth development, juvenile justice, and working with youth and their families. It was flattering to hear that from the board. That's my entire career path, as well as the career path of many of the folks on our team. We have some extremely skilled community engagement specialists who are community organizers by trade on the team, and I look forward to this. I will say that we have had a number of meetings about this that have encouraged public comment, including a town hall where we had lots of parents who came and participated. And I think that I was talking to Commissioner Garcia-Leyes before the meeting about how well researched the school to prison pipeline is, and that there isn't any need to really explain that. It's been well explained. Google it. You'll find 5,000 research articles about it. But we heard in that town hall some stories that are specific to Los Angeles, including one that is from a person who's a regular advocate and commenter at our meetings, who's a parent of a young person who basically described the process by which her young person, her son, ended up in the juvenile incarceration setting in Los Angeles County as sort of a textbook story of the school to prison pipeline that started with an interaction with an officer on campus. This is a problem that impacts real people, real families, and I am excited about the opportunity to be able to bring improvements, at least by offering a new avenue for this. So before Donisha talks about the process, I want to talk about a few things that this ordinance change and process do not do. Number one, the proposed ordinance change does not grant the authority for the Probation Oversight Commission to provide oversight over the Sheriff's Department. That is clearly the role of the COC. It also does not provide the Probation Oversight Commission authority to investigate complaints against sheriff's deputies. That is, well, we could talk for a whole meeting about that issue, but I want to be really clear to the members of the public that that is not what is happening here. The Probation Oversight Commission will not be investigating. We don't have the authority to do that and won't have it with the ordinance change. But what we will have is the opportunity for the members of my team who go out to a lot of public meetings anyway to talk to parents, talk to youth, talk to families about encouraging them to bring their complaints forward, to go through the already existing LASD complaint process, which we'll hear more about in a little bit, or to share with us anonymously so that we can then track complaints and share those back with the Board of Supervisors. And it's my hope that we will provide a process that allows people to feel supported in what can be a very difficult process. Another thing that this does not allow is, or does not replace, I should say, is the other ways that youth and families have always been able to make complaints about school resource deputies. Youth and families can still complain directly to the Sheriff's Department through the LASD complaint process. That won't change at all. They also can still complain through the Office of the Inspector General, through their online portal. There's a robust process for that that also results in a conversation that can lead to the Sheriff's Department investigating those complaints. It's easy to find if you look on the Inspector General's website. It also doesn't change anything about the way that families and youth can still complain through their school. So schools engage in what's called the universal complaint process. That complaint process will remain the same. And in some situations, we expect we will be receiving complaints that don't actually involve school resource deputies. They may involve, as Tracy explained, school resource officers from local law enforcement agencies that aren't the sheriff, or they may involve school security officers that are employees of the school district. So we'll be able to help direct parents and families and youth to the right place to file their complaints, even if it doesn't involve an LASD sheriff's deputy. So I wanted to just say how we're going to do this a little bit. My team is already out all the time engaging with people and trying to get them to come to our meetings and share their concerns about the probation department and the way young people interact with the juvenile justice system. So we will add to our repertoire of services the ability for young people to make complaints in these services, and then also engage in school meetings at schools where there are school resource deputies. That's actually part of the recommendation, that in the contracts there be the availability for the POC to be at those meetings and talk to parents. And we also will be having additional meetings to talk about this process. So we'll have at least one more town hall after County Council completes the language for the ordinance change, so that we can vet that publicly before it goes to the board. We'll look forward to talking about how we can make sure that this works in the best way possible as we go forward. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Donisha, who's going to talk about what the process will actually look like.
Thank you, Wendy. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. Slide number 3, please. So per the board motion, the PLC will serve as an approachable entity for students and others to file a complaint, as Wendy just explained. And since the POC is independent from the Sheriff's Department, it is our hope that people will feel more comfortable coming forward to share their experience with us instead of potentially doing so at a sheriff's station, which we know can be intimidating for most people. With that in mind, we've worked to design a complaint process that is simple, accessible, and easy to navigate. And so the diagram on slide number 3 provides a high-level overview of that process. So it starts with a person filing a complaint to our office or submitting a complaint to our office. We will have a web-based multilingual complaint form on our website that will allow complainants to submit a complaint form anytime at their convenience. And this form will be equipped with Google Translate so that it is accessible in many different languages, including Armenian, Spanish, Simplified Chinese, Vietnamese, Tagalog, and more. Alternatively, we plan to work with school districts to also have paper complaint forms available at either schools or district offices. And we hope to have paper forms available at board offices as well, just to ensure that that option is available to those who desire it. We will accept complaints from students, parents, guardians, and other parties who were involved in an altercation against an SRD officer. Once the complaint is submitted, the complainant will receive a confirmation email to confirm receipt. Once the POC has received that new incoming complaint, we will begin our review and assessment process, and that will include a number of things, as Wendy alluded to. First and foremost, ensuring that the complaint is within scope, that the complaint is actually about an LASD SRD officer. We'll check for things like thoroughness and completeness. Are all the questions answered? Is the narrative clear? Are the supporting documents easy to read? And we'll also be screening for any threats or issues that we may have to report as mandated reporters. After that initial review, a team member will then contact the complainant to ask clarifying questions, confirm the details of their complaint narrative, and confirm that we have all of the relevant supporting documents that they would like to attach to their case file. We'll also ask the complainant to confirm that they'd like us to refer their complaint to LASD for formal investigation. After that period, we will then conduct a warm handoff where we will submit or refer that complaint to LASD for formal investigation. We will make the referral to LASD so the complainant doesn't have to do that. They will not be asked to complete another form. We will do that to make this process convenient for them. And then we will also notate the reference number that we received from LASD, and we'll share that with the complainant. We'll ask our LASD point of contact to confirm receipt of the referral. And again, we will continue to stay in touch with the complainant should they have questions or concerns throughout this process. Once LASD begins their investigation, the POC will serve as a liaison between both parties, the complainant and LASD, and again, answer questions and serve as a support mechanism for the complainant during the process. And as Wendy alluded to, we will not be privy to the outcome of the case. LASD will contact the complainant directly to share how the complaint was resolved. The POC will not be privy to that information. So at a high level, this process is intended to be supportive. The POC is intended to serve as an intermediary. We will not investigate, but we believe we can play an important role by creating a welcoming environment, answering questions, triaging concerns, and referring cases as needed. Next slide, please. So here are the various sections of the complaint form. Again, we've tried to keep it as short as possible so that the complaint form isn't too taxing. The demographic information is really important. So we'll ask for things like the student's age, race, disability status, gender identity, and other questions that will help us compile reports and spot trends as the program matures. Complainants will be asked to write a narrative explaining the incident and to provide other key pieces of information, such as the date and time of the incident, the name of the officer involved, and the name and contact information of any witnesses if applicable. They'll also, again, have the opportunity to upload supporting documentation that they believe is relevant to their complaint. And to help us understand the impact of SRD interactions, we'll also ask if the incident resulted in any disciplinary actions against the student, such as suspensions, expulsions, or arrests. Next slide, please. So here, we're giving you a snapshot of a really wonderful toolkit that Dee Dee and I have been developing. We are developing a toolkit to explain our independent complaint process to the general public, and we hope that it will serve as a useful tool to address frequently asked questions. The toolkit will also include useful links to other county-sponsored resources that may be of interest to parents and guardians. Examples include information about free tutoring and digital learning services available through the public library, economic mobility programs available through DPSS, the Department of Public Social Services, and other resources, again, that might be of interest to parents. Next slide, please. So in addition to developing the web-based complaint form, we are also developing a new custom portal to help the POC team be able to manage complaints. Next slide, please. There you go. So here you have a few screenshots of what that CRM will look like. We're in the process of testing this portal now to ensure that it is, in fact, easy to use and generates a positive user experience. It will be mobile friendly so that you don't need a desktop or a laptop in order to submit a complaint with us. You can do so on a mobile device. And we are very, very grateful to the team at the Information Resource Management Division at the Board of Supervisors Executive Office, who've been really instrumental in helping us develop and implement this project. The CRM will help us to effectively manage complaints, and it will serve as a hub for us to not only enter notes and track case statuses, but also to compile the data we need so that we can publish the reports that have been mentioned every 180 days after the program launches. We intend to generate public status reports so that we can keep stakeholders informed as we continue to learn, as the program continues to mature, as we continue to collect data. We can keep the Board of Supervisors and members of the public updated on the trends that we've noted and make note of any interesting analysis or recommendations that we'd like to share. And so in closing, this initiative supports our overall goals to decarcerate the halls, which is focused on maintaining a low population census and shielding youth from the unnecessary harms and exposure of detention. It gives voice to people with lived experience and it advances the strategic reforms that promote equity and the board's Youth Justice Reimagined vision. So we're really excited to be a part of this initiative. As Wendy alluded to, we've had one town hall with 96 attendees. We are planning another. We have shared our draft process with a number of stakeholders, including this commission, the Office of Inspector General, DYD, others, and all the feedback that we've received thus far has been positive. We look forward to finalizing this process, and we're preparing for a launch in early or mid-September. With that, Wendy, I'll turn it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Danisha. So as a reminder, the reference reports have been attached to today's agenda. Some of them are, for you here, are printed out on the table. We will now move to commissioner comments for the proposed process for the POC. And if the commissioners on this side don't mind, I will start with the commissioners on the civilian oversight. So just by raising your hand, I will call on you. Commissioner Cooper?
Yes, thank you. That was a very comprehensive report, and I really enjoyed it. But I had one question about the dashboard. Now, will you be analyzing it to identify problem areas or problem schools, and then to make sure that you guys are present at those school meetings to help the parents and the deputies and the school administrator resolve some of those problems?
Thank you
Because
for,
we know from the research that not all the schools have problems. So that's why some say we don't have any problems, where like Antelope has serious problems.
thank you, Commissioner Cooper. I'll let Danisha answer the specific question about how we'll track it, but your question is very much aligned with what the supervisors have said to me about this. They really want to know where these complaints are coming from so that they can help ensure that the sheriff's department is addressing the issues. So I actually think that's one, there are a lot of things about this process that are underwhelming in the sense that we're not really going to be making a giant change in the way we're investigating complaints, but the ability to track and make public the demographics and the geographics of where these complaints are coming from, I think is maybe the best part about what this will come from. So we are very aware that that's a concern of the COC, of the Board of Supervisors, and the POC shares that. And then Danisha, maybe you can talk about how we'll do that.
Yes, excellent question. And yes, I'm really excited for the capacity that is being built into our CRM so that we can do just that. We'll be able to filter and sort in a number of different ways and splice the data in a number of different ways. We'll be able to run reports by school district, by school, by officer name. So I think we'll really be able to isolate issues in a way that has not been achievable before. So I'm really excited about the reporting that we'll be able to produce.
Commissioner Johnson? Chair.
I just wanted to ask, first of all, to compliment you on formulating this mechanism for transparency and for tracking. We lack a dashboard like this, which I think is a very positive example, and perhaps a wheel that need not be reinvented, perhaps by our own commission and our own public data portal and website. So I want to compliment you on that and just recognize the step forward that this is and the great example that it constitutes. But I also wanted to ask, I think you alluded in your presentation to the POC either not being aware or in some ways keeping its own partition from the facts of the case or the disposition of the case. And I just wanted to ask, if that were the case, why would you do that? Why not provide information that or maintain the ability to exert oversight in the case and its facts and its disposition?
I'm looking at Amara because I think part of the answer to your question is actually in the explicit authority that will be granted to the POC in terms of what we can and can't do with the ordinance change. That the actual language of the ordinance, as suggested, has not yet been released. But as directed in the board motion, it's pretty specific about just referring complaints without investigation. And it's my understanding through our conversations with LASD that we will be subject to a lot of the laws that prohibit the release of information about specific deputies, personnel information that wouldn't be released to the complainant either, and certainly won't be released to a public body. So at one of our town halls, there was a lot of discussion about this, about the need for legislative change to allow for better oversight over the actual outcomes of the case, beyond just that the investigation was complete. And I'm looking at the sheriff's department, who I think can confirm whether that's the right language to use, that a complainant will know if the investigation is complete, but not about whether an officer has been disciplined or whether an officer has been moved as a result of that complaint, or whether the allegations in the complaint are sustained. So we aren't dividing ourselves from the facts of the complaint as presented by the complainant. That part we will have access to. And in fact, one of the pull down lists on the complaint form is the type of complaint. So something like harassment or discrimination or physical assault or something like that. So we will be able to report on what types of complaints come in, but not on the outcome of the investigation. Does that answer your question?
It does in part, but I just want to ask, one, if there may be ways that it can be redacted to at least provide some narrative or facts to the public. Redacting can be a very helpful benefit in providing to the fullest extent possible without revealing confidential information in ways that provide some illumination and actionable intelligence for civilians and for members of the public. And just to encourage you to push to the full extent possible to provide that information, including when complaints were upheld. And this commission just dealt with this at our most recent meeting in a question about the panel or the dashboard that we were presented. And if information is not presented in a way that provides a sense of reasonable conclusion to the user, you're just throwing information at people without giving empowerment to the community or to oversight officials to work with the public or work with stakeholders. So I'm sure you're aware of this. I don't mean to belabor it, but I do just want to urge that you push to the full extent possible to provide information, even if that means redacting.
Thank you.
Chair
Sean.
Kennedy.
Sean,
Commissioner
well,
Harris.
if you want to go ahead, go ahead.
There's a lot of great work that went into this, so much appreciated. I echo Hans's comments about the dashboard and the complaint process. What a step forward. As we, whatever we call it, oversight or complaint monitoring or being a liaison, they all sound similar to me. As we engage in a mutual effort, I just want to think out concerns I have. I've been on this commission, on this side, since the beginning, and I knew it was going to be really hard, and it's been way harder than I thought it would be. The sheriff is an independently elected official, not an appointed official who answers to the board of the supervisors in the way that the head probation officer does. And the elected sheriff jealously guards his independence and resists oversight to a degree that I've never seen. LA County sheriffs were really one of the last big city law enforcement agencies in America to accept body-worn cameras. They resisted oversight at every step of the way. And when we were finally created, they have refused to share information and collaborate and participate with partners. And so as you join us in this endeavor, I just want to warn you about that. how uncooperative the sheriff is, and the comments, Wendy, that you talked about legalities. Personally, as a lawyer, I respectfully disagree with the assertion of the county council and the LA County Sheriff's Department that oversight bodies and groups of volunteers working hard to put their stamp of public collaboration and transparency on the sheriff's department should be in the same shoes as any member of the public in accessing documents which they need to see to make policy recommendations or to facilitate a complaint process. So I personally think you all should know what the results of the complaint process are, and that you should be able to share it with this commission, the Sheriff Oversight Commission. But I suspect you won't know for the reasons that you said, Wendy. And so as we do it, I think we will have to work closely together to make sure that both of us get the information that we need to achieve our missions. Because Denisha, your comments your mission is a good one. It's a really important one as someone representing youth in the justice system and in the schools. We do a lot of school education advocacy. You know, it's really important, and I appreciate what you say. This commission already shares oversight responsibility with the Civil Brand Commission, which has the right to enter the jails without prior notice, which we don't, and with the Office Inspector General, which is able to access some information that we can't. And the sheriff plays the various agencies against each other as a way not to submit to meaningful oversight and provide documents that are requested. And some examples are this. When I request documents, someone will come up here from the sheriffs and say, we've already given that to the OIG. Knowing that the OIG has a memorandum of understanding with the sheriffs that they can't give the documents that they have to this commission. So it's a complete example of a shell game that happens, and I hope that won't happen between our two commissions, because there's a long history of playing us off each other in this manner, and it all defeats meaningful, effective oversight. And we can't let it do that in an area as important as monitoring the complaints of young people, because one theme that we see on this commission is over and over again for 7 years plus, people come before this commission and talk about how ineffective the complaint process is, how they go to the stations and they're dissuaded from making complaints, and that they don't get meaningful answers to their complaints. And I know that because I have made complaints on behalf of young people I have represented, and I have received ineffective answers that don't tell me what happened. So it's a tall order, but it sounds like you're up to the challenge. So thank you. But I did want to say that because I feel like there's a really special dynamic and vibe with LA County sheriffs, because the sheriff is independently elected and has no intention of answering to the Board of Supervisors, in my opinion.
Commissioner Harris.
Well, going after that, I have to say, I greatly respect our chair, and he and I agree on virtually everything. And I really don't disagree with many of the comments he just made. I will speak for myself as a commissioner. I've been also very, very frustrated being one of the original commissioners as the chair on this commission, and it's been a long road and we're still trying to get information. So I look at this new process as I will look at it with from a positive point of view. I'm hoping this will get us closer to where we want to be. I will correct the chair on one thing about the access to custody facilities. This new sheriff has given us unfettered access to custody.
Without prior notice, you can.
Without prior notice. I can drive right down to Century Regional Detention Center right after this meeting and walk in. because I've done it. And I've also noted Twin Towers. So that has changed. But it wasn't that way under previous administration. So that's a good thing for the current sheriff. He has fixed that. The only thing I wanted to really bring up is they're talking about, you're talking about the ordinance needing to be modified. And this might be a great opportunity for us, although I share Chair Kennedy's less than optimistic view that it'll change, but this is a great opportunity for us to try and through that ordinance, the ordinance specifically state that the Sheriff's Oversight Commission shall have access to the results of these complaints. They can be they should be appropriately redacted. But with that appropriate redaction, I think it is absolutely critical that this body, who does have a mandate to provide oversight to the LASD, have access not only to school resource deputy complaints, but all complaints. So maybe this is an opportunity through this ordinance, we can at least get one step closer to that becoming a reality.
Any other commissioner? Before I go left. Commissioner Garcia.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on, I'm just reading the motion and, I mean, to me, I'm just looking at it from the lens of a recent conversation, discussion I had with the superintendent of the Whittier Union High School District with regards to a school resource deputy at one of their high schools that had criticized a student for not standing up for the Pledge of Allegiance. And, you know, this, one of the things she noted that it was very, I mean, they submitted a complaint, but it was kind of a complicated process. And the school district eventually, you know, engaged in discussions and had that school SRD removed from that campus. And in our conversation, you know, I was discussing about this proposed complaint process. And, you know, one of the things that I'm kind of looking at it through, it almost, it seems like it can be confusing to the parents and the students and, you know, the common person in the community who has this child or young, you know, young adolescent in school. You know, you see the officer, you see the school resource deputy on the campus and something happens, something is said. You know, you go to the school district, you talk to the administrator, you complain, they're likely going to refer you to, hopefully they'll refer you to the probation portal or, you know, to the LASD portals. And then, you know, kind of the engagement. It just seems to me it's kind of like a duplication of, at some point, services, and it hopefully can center some kind of resolution and support for the student at the end of the day. And that I think it's, and some feedback loop to the COC on resolutions like we've been discussing. So I think it needs some, my opinion just looks like it needs some work still.
Commissioner Garcia, Chair Mundo gave me the mic to be able to respond to your question and say how much I appreciate and agree with the two things I hear you saying. The first one I think is the easiest, which is about this being duplicative. I agree that it's duplicative in the sense that there are multiple other arenas in which people can make complaints, and that could lead to confusion. I also think it could be positive in terms of having a new avenue that can bring complaints in to encourage folks to do it. And I think that relates to the first and bigger picture thing that you said, which is the process itself perhaps being complicated and confusing. That is, it's very important to me. And I think there's a very challenging balance to ride there between getting all the information you need and not making it totally overburdensome. So I can tell you we've had lots of conversations internally with my team about how we're going to avoid that problem. And the main one is that we like to use the telephone or meeting in person, and that the online form is something that some of the parents and students will be totally able to maneuver based on their computer savviness, and others we expect won't ever touch it because we'll fill it out for them. And that's something I'm really proud of my team for. Belinda Mellado, I don't know, she's wandering around somewhere, she's right here. And Dee Dee Jones over here are both people who have significant experience with community organizing and community engagement and relations and deep LA roots. And folks trust them. I've seen it with my own eyes in the way that they interact with families and youth on the probation side. And I really believe that we'll be able to overcome that particular obstacle through a youth-focused, family-focused, culturally relevant approach to this process. So yes, the online form is really complicated. I mean, when I look at the screenshot of the CRM, like, oh, thank God I don't have to use that because that's Janisha's job. That's not the expectation that parents and youth would have to be able to maneuver that system. So thank you for bringing that up. And it's a good constant reminder for us to make sure that this is youth focused, family focused, and that we can actually provide a safer, more collaborative avenue to be able to get these complaints into the system.
Thank you, Wendy.
I just wanted to follow up about one thing about the origination of complaints. And, we're joined here today by Vanessa Perez, who offers testimony to our commission on a regular basis, the mother of Joseph Perez, who has experienced some great difficulties with the SRD program at a local high school, and the ability to make complaints about a school resource deputy who was involved in the brutal beating of her son. And I just want to recognize Vanessa Perez here today. And I want to ask if someone like Vanessa Perez or herself were to file a complaint with the sheriff's department directly, would you be able to have access to that complaint? Would it be provided, and would it be logged under the system that you have set up?
The answer to this question is my greatest disappointment in what's happened over the last 5 months, because the answer is no, unless we hear something that's changed from LASD today from the last time that I've had conversations with them. The answer is no, because of the way in which LASD is able or unable, I guess I should say, to sort those complaints. I will tell you that similar to what Commissioner Cooper brought up, this is something that the board has asked for, that they want to be able to see a tracking of all of the complaints, not just the ones that come through us. So it's a place where I am very hopeful we will see a change, but as of now, the answer to your question is no.
Well, I would just offer sua sponte help with advocacy to achieve that goal. And I believe that it's in the public interest to have a full spectrum of the cases that involve SRDs. I'm a bit mystified that something like SRD or the term school resource deputy in a complaint could not make it capturable subject for the purposes of providing and logging. But I just want to note that I, at least, and I think perhaps other commissioners, would be willing to lend our shoulder to the wheel of accomplishing that fuller picture of complaints.
I have to believe this is something that can be fixed. This does not sound like rocket science here. And based upon some conversations I had yesterday with some executives in the sheriff's department, I sensed an openness. So we'll see if we can't pry that door open a little bit more and get something there. Because you're right, without that, you really don't have a full picture of what's going on.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners Meredith?
I'm going to have a little different perspective here because I did run an SRO program for the city of Glendale, which was a very positive program. I'm going to talk a couple things here. First of all, a good SRO program is an effective program because they serve more as role models to interact with the kids, develop those relationships. Now, I understand the complaints that are coming through SRD. Got that. What I'm saying is, so if you look at some of the SRO programs across the country, even here in LA County, you can find some good role models to develop off of. On the complaint process, towards the questions about transparency, government code specifies certain protections that we'll never be able to get the information from. However, the penal code also decides the complaint process, and SB2 has come through now that you can make a complaint straight to the state. And also it talks about certification, discipline, or decertification of peace officers. So I just want to put that out, but I'm trying to establish patterns of practices. We're quick to point out, the complaint process, but rarely do we recognize when a good SRD does something for a kid and moves forward. One of the things on the complaint process, many agencies have software that will track when a complaint comes in. And while, it may be exonerated or unsustained or sustained, the name keeps popping up over and over again. It might give you a flavor of the employee. But again, they can give you a report that's redacted without names. It says, these are the type of complaints we got, and this was the outcome. And I'm just trying to point out for transparency, yeah, it's good to have that kind of tracking mechanism, realizing that some things state law prohibits us from getting. And I do like to say we should also commend our deputies when they do good things. And when there's something wrong, we should take the appropriate discipline. And like I say, I also have the implicit bias. I've known the sheriff for like 30 years, and I know he's trying to make changes. And I would hope that he's trying to work with your commission, as I know the last sheriff didn't. That's all.
Commissioner Lays.
I have no problem with this plan and the motion. It seems like it may be an effective way at providing some help for people making complaints. It might be effective at identifying some bad apples. But the one thing I do have concerns about is any misconceptions that these changes are at all intended to alleviate what the problems described in the motion as the school to prison pipeline. Right? Those are very real, very serious issues that need to be addressed that are not going to be touched by this change in the complaint process. So if the real concern is the school to prison pipeline, I don't think we're doing anything about that here of any significance. But if we are able to help people make complaints, do some improvement at tracking them, maybe identify schools that are having particular problems, or be a resource to student organizers or other organizers who work with students around these issues, those are all good things. So that's my big picture concern. In detail, I also want to think through that there are exceptions to when results of investigations into deputies can be made public, particularly sustained findings of dishonesty, serious uses of force, and sexual misconduct. And my experience with high school students and deputies is that especially young women in high schools are particularly vulnerable to sexual advances by all staff, and that includes sexual SRDs. So the other thing that I have from my professional experience is it can be very difficult to agree on what things like dishonesty or sexual misconduct might mean with the people who are doing the investigations within the sheriff's departments. So if we could, as part of the small picture, right, track specifically each one of those exceptions in our checkboxes, right, then that would enable us, I think, to be in a better position at the end of a process to say, well, if this was sustained, you actually have to tell us what happened because this is an issue of dishonesty or sexual misconduct, et cetera. Or at least put them in a position of then having to admit that there was, we can get some more out of it that way. So big picture, I don't see a problem here, but this is not really fixing the big problem. Little picture, I think there are things we can do to maybe get some more documentation about what happens at the end, at least in those cases.
Commissioner Kakani.
Thank you. Thank you, Danisha, for your presentation. I guess the one thing that continues to sit with me that this process doesn't touch at all is that we're still left with systems that investigate themselves. So it's hard to feel, kind of to Commissioner Garcia-Lay's point, that anything will really meaningfully change when it's the sheriff investigating the sheriff. And that seems like the primary issue here, and an unwillingness to really be kind of transparent or share even what outcomes are of these investigations. Yeah, I don't know. I was reading the title of this, and it's an independent process just for receiving and referring complaints, which, while important and hopefully supportive to families, at least in that immediate moment of wanting to seek safety for their young people, doesn't really do anything for the outcomes and long-term safety for young people in their communities. I'm curious, like, what conversations, if any, have occurred with the sheriff's department about a willingness to share perhaps more information, more data, stuff around outcomes, or if those conversations are not happening at all.
Wendy has had those conversations.
Yeah, I think I am just going to answer that question very directly. And I'll tell you that part of the reason that I agreed to be part of this was based on a conversation I had with Captain Dietrich early on in this process, long before the board motion, in which I felt like he explained not just a willingness, but an interest in receiving more of these complaints, not meaning that complaints are not being received, but centralizing under community policing and the folks who are really interested in improving these systems at the sheriff's department, that I found his responses to be genuinely interested in improving the process and accepting of the idea that this could encourage more people to come forward. I also had similar conversations with LACO that the response was far beyond what I was expecting in terms of them wanting to ensure we weren't creating a duplicative process, kind of what Commissioner Garcia was discussing, but wanting to ensure that families felt that they had an avenue in which they could bring these complaints forward. So there have been a lot of things that all of the commissioners on both commissions have mentioned here that are very frustrating about this, most especially the investigations process. But in terms of how this could potentially make an interest, I think it is in fact the sheriff's response that made me feel confident about the small picture changes as Commissioner Garcia lays.
I mean, I respect the desire and willingness to receive more complaints, but I guess it's hard to know what the meaningfulness of the process is if we don't track the outcomes, right? Whether there's a suspension, whether there's a firing, whether a young person, I don't know if there's also any tracking of like the family's experience. If we're going to be receiving these, you all, from the Probation Oversight Commission staff are going to be receiving these complaints, is there any follow-up that at least occurs with the family as to how the experience was, what their feedback is, what their, how they perceive the outcomes, whether there's increased harassment at schools because of these complaints being made? I don't know if that's been given any thought. If the sheriff isn't willing to provide the outcomes, if there can be follow-up with the families. I guess that's it.
Any other comments? Commissioner
Well,
Johnson?
I'm compelled or inspired to add, in the wake of our own presentation about the LASD data dashboard by LASD staff at our last meeting, sustained is not a label on the complaint disposition on the LASD dashboard. Sustained is not a category that you're going to find there. And I want to voice the frustration of many and the questions of many commissioners that came up even in our presentation last Thursday about the ways in which dispositions of cases are masked in the categories that are revealed on that dashboard. So there is a lot of work that needs to be done to navigate through the opaque categories used on even that public information dashboard about the disposition of cases. And I just want to echo the concern of the commissioner just now about that, the disposition of cases. It's a very sticky wicket. And unfortunately, more work needs to be done. More pressure might need to be exerted for LASD to provide data in a way that is understandable and useful and not frustrating to the public. or complainants.
Commissioner Cooper.
Yes, I had one other question, and I think it's great that we have multiple ways of the reporting, but my concern is with all these various ways, are they coming together? Is the reference number going to be the same? I mean, because that's going to be confusing to the family members if the sheriff's department have a different reference number from the OIG. I'm just sort of concerned how all this is coming together into one.
I can't speak for how the OIG does it, but I can say we agree with you completely, and we will be using one reference number, which will be the LASD reference number. So our team will be submitting this onto the LSD portal, the complaint portal, which then generates a reference number, and that will be the reference number that the family has and that the sheriff's department uses to contact the family and that we use in our communication with the family as well. So I agree that that's a problem. That I think we have found a solution for. What could potentially happen, and I've seen this happen on the probation side, is a family member or a student themselves filing multiple complaints through multiple different avenues. That's something, I mean, we have a great relationship with the OIG as the COC does, and I think there are some ways that we can avoid that problem by just regular communication. We've already talked about having a regular meeting with the sheriff's department just to make sure we have the same list of cases that we submitted and that they have from us. And I don't see why we shouldn't and couldn't include the OIG in that to at least avoid that duplication.
Thank you.
I'm wondering, was there any, we spent the last year holding special hearings on deputy gangs. Was there any attention given to, I don't know, maybe addressing whether or not tattooed group members or law enforcement gang members are being assigned as SRDs? Because what a shame that would be if we've heard in our commission that there are members of the law enforcement gangs who have been assigned as SRDs in the schools. That would be a formula for disaster, in my opinion. Is there any opportunity for these commissions to advocate together that there be some inquiry when you get these complaints, whether the SRD has a numbered ankle tattoo, like a banditos or executioner or regulators or whatever?
I'm looking at Donisha because I believe we have not discussed that
We
at
have
all.
not discussed that.
And I think it would be an interesting component of the discussion. I'd love to hear from the sheriffs perhaps during the next presentation, whether that's been done on.
I don't think the sheriff's department will ask, so I think it would have to come from us.
Commissioners? Thank you. Great discussion. Moving on now to our audience members. Wendy, do we have any written or live public comments for the agenda?
We have some members of the public. Thank you, Danisha, for your presentation. Those members of the members of the public who'd like to make public comment, I encourage you to come sit in the front of the room so you can line up and give your comments. And if you're participating virtually, please use the raise your hand function on the WebEx, and we'll put your name in the queue, and I'll call you, and we'll listen to your comment online. If you're calling in, you need to dial *6 on your phone in order to raise your hand in the queue. We'll call you by your phone number. If you're listening on YouTube, you cannot make public comment from YouTube. If you want to make public comment, you need to join on WebEx. And to do so, you can look for the agenda, which is easy to find either on the COC or the POC website, and join the meeting on WebEx. So we'll get started. I'm actually looking at my team about how we're going to do the timer here. Do you want me to do the timer? How are we going to do the timer? Are we going to put the timer up there? We're going to do 3 minutes. Can we put it up on the screen? That would be great. Okay. We're doing 3 minutes. You can approach the podium and begin.
My name is Vanessa Perez. I'm the mother of Vienna and Joseph Perez. I will be sharing how 2 of 3 children have been impacted by Rolling District School Resource Deputy Pasadena out of Industry Station. The education system is intended to be a safe and nurturing environment for students. Unfortunately, this was not the case for my daughter. I will share Vienna's harrowing ordeal, shedding light on how the urgent need for reforms in the system. Vienna's life changed dramatically when she learned that Deputy Pasadena, the very person responsible for her brother's traumatic beating, was stationed as a school resource officer in her school. Deputy Pasadena was the last of 7 deputies who beat Joseph. Deputy Pasadena came in at punch 107 and was stopped at 121. Vienna's story is a distressing example of the flaws within the education and the law enforcement systems. The assignment of a school resource officer who had previously exhibited abusive behaviors raises serious concerns and questions about the selection and the vetting processes in place. It highlights the urgent need for stricter background checks, comprehensive training on trauma-informed practices, and improved communication channels between schools and law enforcement agencies. Educational institutions must prioritize the emotional and psychological well-being of students, ensuring they are not subjected to further harm and distress. Vienna's journey to heal from the trauma she experienced at school serves as a sombering reminder of the urgent reforms needed within the education system. No student should ever have to face their abuser within the confines of their educational environment. Vienna's resilience and determination to bring about change should inspire us all to work towards a future where every child can receive an education free from violence and fear. It is our collective responsibility to ensure that schools are sanctuaries of learning, fostering an environment where students can thrive and grow without enduring further trauma. Together, we demand accountability and justice for her brother's assault while also raising awareness about negative consequences of placing officers with a history of violence in schools. I also want to say, there needs to be whoever checked, approved the beating and put Paul Sedana in a school, whoever approved that, there needs to be a background check on that individual as well. And when it comes back that there's no use of force records of Paul Sedana having the use of force behind him, then there needs to be a background check on his captain that had justified my son's beating. Because now it's back to the higher uppers that are getting promoted and improving this type of behavior. Nobody that did this should be in a school, much less with my daughter. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Hello, my name is Raquel Derfler. I'm Chair of Cancel the Contract AV. I would like to briefly express my disappointment that we actually had a commissioner on the Probation Oversight Commission, Meredith, that you were concerned that we may or may not need this complaint process for when officers do wrong, but what about when they do great? The Sheriff's Department has no issue with that. They have a very robust PR about how great they are and how SRDs are heroes, are mentors. No mentor wears a gun. It is not. So that is disappointing that a member of the agency that will be overlooking this complaint process is more concerned with the Sheriff's Department than the folks like Vanessa, whose daughter had to be in a fishbowl environment with the man that beat the crap out of her. And when she went to go look, if any records were available showing use of force by Paul Sodana using the Sheriff's Department's own complaint record area under transparency, none to be found. We know this to be true. This happens because mid-level and upper management excuse these things. I know this because the Antelope Valley stations have been under a settlement agreement since 2015. They are not in compliance, and time again, the monitor's reports that come out twice a year show that egregious uses of force are shown to be within policy when they make their ways up the ranks. So that's concerning. The reason there is a need for an independent complaint process is it's scary for members of community, grown folks, to complain about when they have problematic interactions with sheriff's deputies because of the fear of retaliation. Imagine being a 13 or 14-year-old that has an interaction with that school resource deputy that society tells you is great, that actually school administrators want to say is great. Where do you turn? It's very scary. So there needs to be a warm, welcoming place, like you are describing, hopefully, where they can turn to. Because we know we cannot trust the sheriffs to investigate themselves. And I saw Captain Dietrichs almost did a double take when we were talking about how resistive the sheriff's is to any kind of oversight, like he didn't understand or didn't know. I'm not quite sure if that's true, but that's been our experience. Obstructionists will not be open to being held accountable for the harm that they do to community.
Thank you, Raquel.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jacqueline Venters, lifetime member of National Association of Blacks in Criminal Justice. I advocate for my community for justice, and I'm here because of the complaints. We have been complaining for years about the unjust behaviors of some of these deputies. Now we're at a point to accountability. What is the process to hold those that have committed those crimes accountable for their actions? I've been coming to this Sheriff Oversight Commission meeting for some years now. It started with my son, Tanil, that was shot 5 times in the back by a deputy, Gonzalo Azusa. He shot 4 people in 7 months. And I've been coming up here, and we never got a respond or any kind of nothing from anybody. But I kept fighting. I'm encouraging these families, don't give up, because today I'm claiming a victory. You know, we had a meeting a couple of days ago with the Public Defender's Office and the District Attorney's Office. And I did this because I was persistent to hold those accountable for committing the crimes that they put the civilians in jail for. I think they should be held to the highest standard of their crimes also. If they commit crimes against a kid or adult or whatever, they should be sentenced to the same thing that our loved ones are being sentenced to. And this has been going on for so long, they have been allowed to get away with these crimes, with murder, attempted murder, assault, rape, so many things. And they have put themselves above the law, and I don't think it's fair. As a civilian myself coming complaining, we don't get anything. You know, we're tired of talking. Everybody is tired of talking. I've been watching these parents come up here and God saved my son. You know, after getting shot 5 times in the back, he's able to tell his story, and I can't wait till he come home so he could share it with everybody because it's horrific. And this should never happen to none of us. You know, these babies, they're ours. And it seemed like they don't care. You know, they cover up, like the lady said, they should never be allowed to investigate themselves because they're not going to do it according to the law. And I'm a living witness that. I've had 3 investigations that came from the sheriff department, and they was fraudulent because we have black and white showing that this deputy committed a crime. And it was swept up under the rug, but with the grace of God and me being persistent, he's going to be held accountable. I'm giving that to God because of where we at today. And parents, don't give up. You know, these are your babies, and we got to continue to fight for them.
Thank you.
Good morning. First of all, first my name's Isaac Asbury. I'm with the National Association of Blacks in Criminal Justice. That organization has been around for 50 years. I'm a resident of Compton. I'm a retired law enforcement person, but we are here today to thank the commission on the last week we met, And we provided this board to you guys on the homicides in the city of Compton, right? Apparently, we kind of shook up the homicide department and they put out some kind of 45-page, I don't know what you call it, 45-page on the website as what they do as homicide division. I don't know what to say. My friend Ron said they're on the right track. I don't believe that, because as you can see, this board shows a lot of homicides. And the only reason why I was able to do this, I broke my foot and I couldn't move around, so I just tagged them in. Everywhere I saw a homicide with the documentation I provide, I punched it in, right? The green are the fatal shootings in the last 24 years by deputy sheriffs, right? So I'm going to carry this board around till I get them to understand that I'm not going nowhere. Commission is not going nowhere. And then you got another gang over here, probation department. I don't know you guys, but apparently you guys ain't going nowhere, right? So we're not here to say that the sheriff department is this and that. We want the same safety and responsibility that we had a shooting about a week ago in Compton. 6 people got shot, right? At a party at a college graduation, right? 6 people got shot. It's like a norm, you know. That's an overkill. One, the young man that was killed, his mother has been burying people for I don't know how many years. She works at a funeral home type deal, and she lost her only son to this violence, right? They got cameras, they got videos, what occurred, and nobody is going to the sheriff to say who did it or why. And as you can see in this room, Compton is on the other side of El Segundo, and the residents do not trust the sheriff's department. Okay, so I want to thank the commission for your input that the homicide division put out this website as to what they do is in the right direction. We're going to help them out. That's all I have.
Thank you.
I'm Ron Dowell with National Association of Blacks in Criminal Justice. Happy belated Juneteenth. And welcome fellow commissioners, public who travel miles to be here. Welcome to Watts. This is my town. Many of us know that enslaved Africans living in Texas received the memo in June 1865, 2.5 years after President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. On December 6, 1865, the requisite number of states ratified the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, legally ending slavery in the United States. We don't speak much about the birthright citizenship of June 13th, 1866. That's when the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was adopted, forbidding states to deny any person life, liberty, or property without due process of law. The 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution was ratified in 1868. All American-born children of slaves were meant to be covered by the Amendment's Citizenship Clause to repudiate the infamous Dred Scott case completely. In other words, Americans are created equal, born equal. Although the goal is admirable, we still struggle with implementation. For example, while the focus is on deputy tattoos and the scourge of their gang affiliations, people such as Andres Guardado, Ricky Cornell Starks, Michael Thomas, Ryan Twyman, and Dante Taylor, like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Philando Castile, were denied their right to life at the hands of police, many of whom remain unnamed. To remind us of our right to life. I wrote this poem. Dijon Kizee, an officer involved needless shooting. The powder white ghost bike hangs from festoon chain link as a silent witness to another murder by cop. Metallic balloons dance to be freed from strings of coercion. Trumpets riot from a boombox. Sidewalk candles and myrrh burn. Gilded liquor bottles spill his name. Dijon. A t-shirt keeps his photo while withered flower sprays grace the fence like a rainbow goddess. Under a tent, the red, black, and green liberation flag flaps, a defiant cry, resistant to winds of terror. Thank you.
Ian?
Hello, Thomas Bell. I'm with the probation department. I'm with Local 685, the union. We work with the juvenile youth that a lot of times, are dealing with this situation. I'm a little nervous as always, but I just want to say, just listening to everybody. First of all, the parents, I apologize. I'm sorry for what happened to your kids. I'm not here to condone any of negative behavior or anything. I'm not going to act like I'm not a African American male living in America, and that all my interactions with law enforcement have been great. There's been times where I've been patted down for no reason for walking down the street, and all these other things have happened to me as well, and I've been embarrassed. But one thing I do know is that I've had a lot more interactions with sheriffs and other law enforcement that have been positive. And like Mr. Meredith has said, we need to start pointing that out as well. I know people get upset when they hear that, but the media out there right now doesn't show the good things. Being in probation, I'm sure you guys already know, we ain't got nothing but negative out there right now. Nothing at all positive. You would look at us, think we monsters, according to the media. So we do need to put that out there. When I went to school in junior high, we had an officer on campus. And that, for us who are not part of gangs, who are not trying to live that life, that officer there was our safety from those who were living that life. That officer there was the one that we went to make sure we got to home okay. We got safely there. Not every officer on these schools are there doing the things that, people say that they're doing, not there to injure. They're there for safety. Not every juvenile or youth is saying that, oh, they're intimidated, they're scared. There's people out there, there's more youth in the schools who feel, wow, that guy with the badge right there, I'm going to be safe today. And they know the difference between an officer and a security guard. I work with these youth. They will tell you, they know the difference of what an officer could do and what a security guard could do. They see a security guard, it's on. It's time to explode. They see an officer, they hold back. There's the difference between the two. So we need to really start pointing out the good things that these officers do in these schools and how they actually do help these kids grow, how they do build relationships, and we build on that as well. We just had a whole meeting about complaints and how to go about telling on officers when they do something wrong. Let's have a meeting about telling on what they're doing right and how we could build on what they're doing right and strengthen the process and make sure that they're in school helping the kids as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. I don't see anybody else in the room for public comment, and we didn't have anyone online. Is that still the case? Okay, so I'll turn it back over to you.
Did I call for the break or you? Okay, we're going to take a 10-minute break. We'll be back. Commissioners, please abide by the time limit so we can finish our meeting and get back to our other lives. Commissioners, if you can start making your way back, please. We've promised our audience that we would return in 10 minutes, and they're anticipating our return.
Yeah, the high sheriff said we could do it. That's all authority I need. Well, he must, I was wondering that myself. He must have, because the watch commanders have never batted an eye. No problem. You can come on in. The sheriff told us, let you guys in.
Yeah, I've gone in with like Catherine too.
And we're going with, we're going with OIG a lot. Yeah. We're good. All right, let me sleep in.
It took me about. Yeah, it's just that. Just the interest, just getting from 10 to the 6:05. It's good time.
I don't understand what that even, how that happened. Then I'm not doing my job.
That 10. 5 could spend.
Yeah.
Well, I can't argue with it. That's a good question.
We're just waiting on Hans, right? And Charmaine, yeah.
Okay, sit down, please.
Well, this side is all ready. Let's
do it.
Charmaine, Hans,
He's coming.
the POC is all ready and we're dawdling. Well, I'm sure Hans is on his way, so why don't we begin? We're going to take up the LASD complaint process. And to that end, we have Lieutenant Thomas Kim from the Risk Management Bureau with us to give us a presentation about the complaint process. Lieutenant Kim, we really appreciate you being here. On the COC side, we have we hear so many concerns from community members that they're not welcome to file a complaint at the station. And even like high profile, I think it was 2023 when Feezy LeBron was stopped by a deputy in a car and there were threatened, I guess the deputy threatened to shoot him in the chest. And then he wanted to file a complaint and there's a video of him being dissuaded from doing that. And so it's good for both our commissions to hear how the process works and how it's going from, your perspective, because from the perspective of the people sitting on the commission, it's really, really hard to file a complaint against the LASD.
Well, thank you for having me here, sir, and hopefully I can share some insight on our complaint process. My name is Lieutenant Thomas Kim. I'm part of the Risk Management Bureau for the LA County Sheriff Department. I'll wait until the slide loads. Next slide, please. And our public complaint process is part of our public comment process. And our public comment process encompasses both complaints and commendations. And we take both of them at equal value. Like who doesn't like a commendation? Getting patted on the back or receive accolades to the work you've done. But also well, we hold it to the same value as public complaints. Because in order to receive a commendation, you have to be on top of your game. Like always strive for perfection. Like nobody's perfect, but the best thing we can do is strive for perfection. And the best way to strive for perfection is to learn from our mistakes. Like hear comments from the public, we're all a team. Like we're moving to the first century community policing, which deals with the concept of the sheriff department working with the community to provide a better and safer community for everybody. And with the public complaint process, like individuals such as the public, and we consider the public anybody that does not work for the Los Angeles County Sheriff Department. Like we have internal controls for our own personnel when it comes to personnel issues, but this process is only for the public. And next slide, please. Yeah, who can submit a complaint? That's the public. And we'll take any complaint, whether it's from an anonymous person, a third party that had nothing to do with the incident. And we take it in several forms. It could be a written complaint. We receive it in the mail, and either in the email, somebody coming to the station, a phone call, or even writing it on a McDonald's napkin and dropping it off at the counter. We'll even take that. And all complaints, they funnel through and end up being placed on our WSCR form, which is the Watch Matters Service Complaint Form, also called the Watch Matters Service Comment Form. Well, we use the same form for both complaints and also accommodations. And next slide, please. And these are the ways that a complaint can be made: writing, in person, telephonic, the LASD website. We have a website, like on our transparency page, where somebody can make a complaint on the department personnel. And with that complaint, everything's logged into the system. And when a complaint is made on the website, it asks you certain details, such as where the incident occurred, the date and time, which personnel might have been involved in that incident, and what station. Oh, and a little summary of also what occurred. And we use that information to try to identify the proper person or the proper station to answer to that. And it's usually going to be the watch commander on duty, like a lieutenant. Sometimes it could be a sergeant, because we're short on personnel. A sergeant can be filling as a watch commander. And if it's their shift, they would also handle the complaint. Also, through the Office of Inspector General, the OIG website, Peace Officer Standards and Training post. And that just came about with Senate Bill 2. With Senate Bill 2, it deals with Peace Officer decertification. And the Post Commission saw a need to have some type of public complaint reporting like on their website. And usually they receive the complaint and they forward it to our SB2 office and our Senate Bill 2 office, and puts it on a WSCR form, and then sends it off to the respective unit that's going to be investigating it. And then a complaint can be submitted in any form, in any language. We currently have forms in English and Spanish at every sheriff facility, where somebody can submit it through mail, or write down their complaint and submit it to the stations if they don't feel comfortable speaking to somebody at that point. Next slide, please. And these are the types of complaints that we receive. There's two types: either a personnel complaint that deals with the specific incident that a department member was involved in, or a service complaint where somebody can complain on our policies, procedures, traffic citations, the laws, something that not necessarily is not attributed to a specific person, a person's actions. Like the personnel complaints: discourtesy, dishonesty, unreasonable force, improper tactics, improper search or arrest, neglect of duty, discrimination, operation of vehicles, harassment, off-duty conduct, criminal conduct, and other that encompasses any other allegation. And this is straight from our WSCR form. And next slide, please. This is what is expected. From day one, that's when we receive the complaint. When we receive it in any form. Like me personally, I like to receive the complaint in person, speaking one-on-one to the complainant, because things can be lost in translation. Like, or and they cannot express themselves like the same way, like in person than in writing. Like, I like to sit down, like with the person complaining and go over the concerns and see, like what's the best way I can address the concerns and make sure that I capture like every single little detail or concern that the person has. And after it gets placed on the WSCR form, it gets sent to the operations staff at the respective unit. That's when it gets logged into the system. Like all the complaints get reviewed by the unit commander, and then it gets assigned out to an investigator, which is again usually a lieutenant. And around day 3, that's when an acknowledgement letter is sent out to the person complaining. When in the acknowledgement letter, it states that we received the complaint, and it'll inform the person complaining of who's investigating the complaint and their contact information of where they can be reached. From there, it goes on to the service review. That's when the investigation starts. An investigation can start as early as day 1 and typically up to day 29, or it can go longer depending on the complexity and also any documents that the investigator might be waiting for, or any person that they're trying to contact. And during the service review, everything possible is reviewed, from body cam footage to witness statements, surveillance video. The investigating supervisor tries their best to try to gather all information. And during the service review process, a person complaining or witnesses or anybody she'll expect to be contacted by that supervisor. And it's a team effort. I know it could be intimidating speaking to a law enforcement official or somebody that's representing the sheriff department, but like that investigator needs to completely understand like what occurred in order to best address the situation. And after everything is reviewed, and that's when it is sent to the operations staff, like the operations sergeant, operations lieutenant, and operations captain. And that's when they review the complaint and make sure that everything's been addressed, and then and a proper investigation was conducted. And then that's when like the preliminary decision is made. Well, on the disposition of the case. And that's when the final outcome letter is sent out to the parties concerned, whether it's the reporting party or an involved party. The difference between the reporting party and the involved party is that the reporting party is the person that first making the complaint. It could either be a person that personally witnessed it or somebody that's totally not involved. We've had persons from like Florida, even Europe, watching a YouTube video of an interaction with the department person complain from their home state or their home country, and we still take that complaint. And we call that a third-party complaint. And an involved person is a person that was actually involved in the incident. And next slide, please. And these are the types of dispositions that are the decisions that we come to. And there's 3 categories: the review disposition, watching matters of discretion, and the exoneration. We'll start off first with the review disposition. And the first category in the disposition is employee conduct appears reasonable. And what the employee conduct appears reasonable is that the investigation determined that the deputy's conduct did not violate any department policy or state law. And the next one appears employee conduct could have been better, meaning that the employee's conduct did not violate department law or sorry, department policy or state law, but they could have employed a better judgment or de-escalation techniques. The third one, employee conduct should have been different, which the employee did violate some type of department policy. And the other one's unable to make a determination. What the unable to make a determination is that the investigating supervisor was not able to gather enough facts to determine whether the employee's conduct was reasonable or they violated some type of policy or some type of law. And resolved conflict resolution, where there was no policy violation or a violation of the law. It was just some type of misunderstanding between all individuals. And then there was a meeting to address those concerns. And as a result of that meeting, there was a better understanding and the conflict was resolved. And then when it comes to violating department policy, it's up to the commander to determine whether it's something that's minor that can be addressed through training, counseling, and so forth, or if it's something that's more egregious that requires a formal discipline, like an investigation being opened, either administrative or criminal, for formal discipline. And when it comes to the final disposition letter, it would state any of these findings, but because of POBAR, which is the Peace Officers Bill of Rights, it restricts us as supervisors from divulging certain information. Trust me, it'll make our jobs easier, and also where we want to be transparent, but we're just restricted from state law from divulging certain information. And the other way a WSCR it can be disposed is a watch commander's discretion. The service will be terminated. That's something that's rare, that hardly ever gets utilized, but it's still there that as a supervisor can utilize it. Such as that the reporting party was under the influence at the time of complaint, and then they're recontacted when they're sober, and they have no recollection of them complaining or anything about the incident, and there's no other evidence to suggest otherwise. And the factually impossible complaint or reporting party demonstrated diminished capacity. There's been some complaints that have came in saying, well, yeah, the deputy so-and-so put a chip in my head, and he's working with the gray aliens to find out where I'm going, and also they were held by a demon and sucked my soul, and that's the factually impossible complaint that can be cleared out, and it has to be something blatant like factually impossible. And a third-party complaint without witnesses alleged aggrieved party is uncooperative, saying that somebody's complaining on behalf of somebody else. Then when you go to interview that person that was involved in the incident, and they don't want to cooperate, and or they say that it never happened, and then and there's no other evidence to say otherwise. And finally, the watch commander has personal knowledge that the complaint is false. Well, and it has to be personal knowledge where the watch commander actually witnessed the incident, and that has personal knowledge of it being false. And exoneration. That's when the employee was not personally involved or any way connected. So sometimes names are construed, and then somebody might identify a certain deputy that was his day off or was never involved in that incident. And that's when it would be used. And the inquiry revealed all allegations were false. And with that one, we're careful to use that one. It has to be evidence, supporting that the allegation was false, or the allegations do not violate the law and or department policy, and the conduct is not otherwise censurable, which means that do not violate the department policy, the law, and then we can't prohibit or counsel an employee regarding them doing that action, such as parking at a park and writing the reports, or going into a McDonald's and ordering some food. Like our employees still have to eat, and then we have to turn in the reports in a timely manner. And next slide, please. And when it comes to allegations of criminal or policy violations, going back to the station unit commander or the captain, determining if an investigation, the formal investigation has to be opened. An allegation of criminal misconduct. If there is any reasonable suspicion that an employee violated a law, then it could be sent to the division chief, and the division chief will then make the determination on how to properly handle that. We have our internal criminal investigation bureau, and then that handles criminal investigations that are serious in nature. And then at that point, it's all investigations stop at the station level. Right. And way that criminal investigations handle a violation, then will be open or can be opened to that can result in a formal discipline from a written reprimand all the way to discharge. And when it comes to the policy violations resulting in formal discipline, we have to abide again by a POL bar, which is a Peace Officer Bill of Rights that sets certain guidelines and parameters that we have to abide to while investigating. That's why it was brought up of an outside entity investigating the department members for department violations. There's certain rules that have to be met. There's certain rights that the peace officers have to be advised of, and a certain process that we have to take. If we don't take that process, then the involved employee can go scot-free from receiving any discipline, or they can turn around and sue our department. And next slide. And, this is our dashboard on our LASD public website. And on this dashboard, it goes over all of our complaints. And it's broken down into categories: criminal conduct, dishonesty, and so forth. And also it's broken down by the stations and what kind of dispositions that those investigations received. And going back to the letter of disposition and finding out like what happened with the complaint, like we are required to send out a letter like informing the person of what happened with that complaint, and then it'll state the conduct was reasonable, should have been better, could have been better, or an investigation was opened. And because of a POL bar, Peace Officer Bill of Rights, we're restricted to state only like certain words or not go deep into like certain investigations. But recently with SB 1421, SB 16, which is the Public Records Act, like what serious misconduct that's found, it's such as like sexual allegations, like dishonesty, excessive force, and then a false arrest. Like it can be requested by the public, and then they can receive those records and investigation, and that can be requested through our public records department. And, next slide. And that concludes my presentation. And does the commission have any questions?
Okay, let's open it up on the POC side. Any questions, comments?
For those of you who don't know me, I have a reputation for asking lots of questions.
That's
So
good.
apologies in advance, I guess. Sorry, I'm walking away from this presentation actually with more questions than clarity. So can you start by just telling, is the unit commander and the watch commander the same person?
The watch commander is typically a lieutenant that's in charge of the shift.
Okay,
And the unit commander is typically a captain. And the captain oversees all operations for this whole station.
okay, but
So-
they're both within the
Then-
same station?
Yes.
Okay, and so it's a unit commander who decides whether or not to send a complaint to an investigator? Or do all complaints get sent to an investigator?
Captain,
We'll help you out here.
Thank you.
So in the complaint process, the watch commander is usually the rank of a lieutenant or a sergeant that's in charge of that shift at that moment.
Mhm.
The unit commander is the captain.
Okay,
Okay, so if someone calls the station to make a complaint, it shall be taken by the watch commander.
okay,
After that, when that complaint is received, and one of the things that's important to note, every complaint made to the sheriff's department is on a serialized document. Like at my bureau, at Community Partnerships Bureau, we receive our watch commander service comment forms in a memo from Risk Management Bureau saying, you have these forms from this serial number to this serial number. They shall be logged. You can't even void one without making another report, and it has to be documented.
that's,
The unit commander then gets that and then sends it to be investigated.
that's an automatic send or that's a, let me
If there is a
decide?
complaint made, it's an automatic send.
Okay, and the investigator lives where?
Well, in each bureau, or in each station or each bureau, in my unit, I mean, I oversee 11 different things.
Mhm.
The subject matter lieutenant or sergeant for that, like if it's SRDs, I have one sergeant assigned to the SRD. But in our situation, and we'll get, actually, let me digress because that's going to be a more complicated issue. In my bureau, let's say it's the homeless outreach team, there's a lieutenant that oversees them. That complaint would go to him or her. For the MET team, it would go to that lieutenant. SRDs is different because they don't work for me. They don't work at Community Partnerships Bureau. Any complaint that we would get as a department on a sheriff's, on a SRD would go to the unit commander of the station that deputy's assigned to.
So it's really someone within the station who's investigating another member
A
of
cap-
that station,
Yes.
essentially?
Yes. The captain, and I'll articulate it. As a matter of fact, I looked in, and one of the things, and I get there's a differing of opinions, and I get that there's anecdotal evidence of people who have fallen short. But I've been on the department for 33 years and been a supervisor for 20. There has not been one time in my career as a supervisor where somebody said, I want to make a complaint, that we didn't take it. There's an 88-page service comment handbook on how to take complaints. And it's very important that we address those issues. We admit they're there, right? There's a video. But
It's on video, yeah.
that's what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that for my career, and I'm not unique, complaints are extremely important to the department.
So
They
my,
always
my
have.
question isn't really about the taking of the complaint. It's again about the investigation of the complaint.
It would be a supervisor to the rank of a sergeant or lieutenant that oversees that employee.
I understand all of that. I guess the part that's not sitting well with me is like the lack of, or it's like the appearance of impropriety, right? It's the appearance of someone from the department or from the same station, right? Investigating someone else from the same station, not necessarily an objective party. So just wanting to make sure I understood that that is in fact the process. And then for the SRDs, you're saying it's, if an SRD is assigned to Station 11, I don't even know if that's how it's described here.
It's okay.
Okay, just in New York, it was like precinct and number. So whatever, Station 11, then it's someone from that same station who's conducting the investigation.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, no, well, to a degree, a complaint. Now, once a complaint evolves into either a criminal nature or significant policy violations, then the answer is no, it changes. That is then deferred to internal affairs or internal criminal. So if a complaint rises to those levels, it's not handled
at that station.
Well, I thought I saw on the slide that when there's a criminal or policy violation, it's either or no, it's a policy violation, I'm sorry, that it's investigated at the unit level, or I can't remember what was written there. But
Yeah, so criminal goes to internal criminals. A
Okay,
policy
policy
violation,
violation.
now being rude is a policy violation. So something like that could be handled at the station level. When you have significant issues that could result in significant discipline, that can be, the unit commander can recommend that it goes to internal affairs.
Okay, but that's, I mean, somewhat subjective. Is there like a, right, okay, and I guess that was my other question. Even as it relates to the dispositions, could have been better. I don't know that I've seen a more like vague,
Should have, could have, would have.
subjective determination around something.
I agree.
So is there like a list of what qualifies as could have been better? Like what is the training around that?
What is the training?
Around could have been better and whether someone makes that determination.
Well, it's the same training for should have been better. It's the same for each. Now, there's a lot of subjectiveness to it. That we'll agree with.
And does risk management review that? Like who reviews that level of potential subjectivity?
So here's another part of this is, so a complaint comes in, it's then investigated. After that complaint's investigated, it's turned into that station or bureau's operations staff. It's reviewed by an operations sergeant, an operations lieutenant, then given to the unit commander.
But all those folks are in the same station, right?
We're not done. After the unit commander, then goes to the division staff, who sometimes is a sergeant, most of the time is lieutenant. So you could have another sergeant and another lieutenant review it. Then the commander can review it, and then the chief. So all of those levels must look at it with an objective lens. Now, if the inference is that everybody's in on it, well, then there's no chance to win. But I can tell you from my lens, it's having integrity and looking at everything with the transparency to maybe do better. And there's times when we can do better. There's times when we've fallen way short, and there's times when the complaint was a misunderstanding. And so one of the things that I'm doing, especially with this program, is we have a process called conflict resolution. And so if somebody makes a complaint, they have the option to come and sit down with the unit commander and the deputy and talk about it. And I found that to be tremendously valuable in my career. Now, there's always going to be some that are opposed to that. And that's one of the reasons that we're here today, is because there were those who felt challenged or dissuaded or threatening that they couldn't make a complaint. And so the folks came together and decided that your commission and going through probation could be another avenue, right? Because as you saw, someone can call the station, they can go into the station, they can email, they can use OIG, Office of Inspector General, and the Civilian Oversight Commission. I've received complaints as a captain from, I think, almost every one of those except for Post, and I don't think COC has sent me any. And when we received those. And one of the reasons that we're here is because those that said they didn't feel comfortable in making that complaint can now proactively call you and your body, and then that means at least they know that complaint's taken. Because in my command, and I'm not unique, there is no supervisor that has the ability to say, no, we're not taking the complaint. And so while we see the one-offs, that is not common. And so now we know that if someone is either watching this or through our messaging through the Probation Commission and others, if someone feels like they're afraid or intimidated to make a complaint, they can make it to this body. And one, you're assured that the complaint is taken. The issue you have with the investigation, ma'am, I don't think we're ever going to cover, at least not in my career, because we do conduct those investigations. And however, if it rises to a criminal act, it goes to a different area. But policy violations and those of lesser are handled at the station.
Okay, so we heard, I think it's Ms. Perez, who's not here anymore, share that she made a complaint and then there was no record of that complaint.
Which one was that?
I think that was related to her son, who
The industry
looked the
deputy?
fact that he was.
What I would offer to you is to really vet that situation because there's always multiple layers to it. So without getting into detail, I would recommend that you find the exact and factual basis for everything. There obviously was a significant incident occurred, but there's always going to be more to that.
Right, that's right, obvious, but I guess we're talking about trying to build something
And I
that's
say that
visible,
with, and I say that to
transparency.
you with confidence.
Okay. Right. So, but if we're trying to build something that's like both safe for folks and transparent, and you're saying that we're never really going to get to a place of
No, ma'am.
complete transparency.
That's not what I said. You asked
around-
me about that incident?
Right, but I'm saying even just related to that incident, right? There was a complaint that was made, it sounds like, against someone who was who ended up being a school resource deputy or may have been a school resource deputy previously. And then there's really kind of no documentation or transparency around that. So I'm just curious if you're seeing anything changing around that, given your position and your understanding of the process.
Well, that incident that you're bringing up is quite complicated, so I would say there's a lot of documentation.
So okay, so fine,
Yeah,
if
if
we
we
want to
take
put
that
that
one.
aside, but if there are any incidents related to a parent coming or a young person coming and filing a complaint, either through the POC, through the OIG, directly to you, with the assistance of the Civilian Oversight Commission, what is your kind of commitment to creating something that's a little more transparent around the actual investigation process and the outcomes, if any?
So I'm unsure what you're asking. So you're asking like, what would we do? Like, would I investigate it myself?
No, I'm not asking that. I'm asking are you willing to share outcomes? Is that something, are you willing with redacted
I hear
information?
you.
Are you?
No, and as Executive Director Julian said, I'm extremely open to transparency, and I believe, and my whole career has been based on community policing. And the stronger that we are with the community, the better that we're going to be in community, not only safety, the public trust, all that is improved. And that's one thing to address something earlier is Sheriff Luna's emphatic words were, we are transparent and we will do everything that we can to make this better. And that was my marching order from the beginning when this program was brought here. Now, as it comes to, the only thing we can't do is violate the law. And so, and I'd have to confer, county council isn't sitting here for me, is I cannot stand here and tell you that I'll violate the law. Anything short of violating the law, sure, we can do it. And I'll think, and when we looked in last night, we did a cursory search, and in the last year, we had three complaints towards school resource deputies. Now, if there's others that felt they couldn't make those complaints, then there should be more that we'll be able to get, hopefully with your involvement, where they feel more comfortable. But there was 3 complaints last year within all the schools. And so I think we look at resources. My bureau has 1 sergeant allocated for the entire Los Angeles County to oversee the school resource deputy program. And I have an operations lieutenant and myself. And so when we look at how could we do it different, we would have to have some resources, but then we just said there's 3, right? So we also are looking at, once a school resource deputy receives a complaint, we will also be tracking it administratively with us. And we'll understand what the complaint was, and then see if, obviously with 3, we don't have a pattern unless that was the same person, which I can attest that it's not. We would have that control or that oversight too internally. Now, within sharing, there's nothing we shouldn't share, absent being outside of the law. We can't violate the law. But I think there's a lot of room for growth here, and that's what our goal is. And that's why we'll work with you. And I think I was trying to listen to what was said earlier about some of the things, and I think in that conflict resolution, which I really think, because the person hears the whole investigation, they vet it out together. And so maybe it's us educating the public through these kind of forums about a better way of doing it, and that we are open to those complaints. Because we have children. We don't want a deputy that's doing the wrong things in school, but we also understand people make mistakes. But there's no hiding anything.
One last question, and then I'm gonna pass it along to others who I'm sure have questions. You stated that it's reviewed by when a complaint is made, that then I can't even remember the list of people that you said it gets reviewed by, to determine that, I don't know, that everyone agrees that someone should have done better, or could have done better, or whatever the actual disposition is. How long does that review process take?
It's supposed to be done in 30 days.
And
So to
how
give you an
often is
example,
it done? And
with our personnel shortage today, I think we fall short a little more than we used to.
What does
But
that
I would
mean,
say
though? I mean, that's
we're
just
late.
like super vague.
If you have 1 lieutenant that supervises a lot of
I'm
people.
not asking for I'm just are there numbers? There might not be, but are there numbers? Do you have how many complaints you all receive, and then the delay, or the outside of the number of complaints that are reviewed outside of 30 days or within 30 days?
For the whole department?
For the whole department,
be.
and I guess you said for the SRDs, it
Well,
was
there's
just
3.
3, so
And they
were
were all
those
done,
within?
and I have them. When I reviewed them, they were all done within the 30-day time frame.
Okay,
For the department, I don't know.
yeah.
And when it comes down to the department, it's not a like a one answer fits all, because we have different stations with different activity levels, such as like Avalon Station. We only have a certain number of deputies that are working there, compared to like Palmdale Lancaster Station, where they have like 10 to 15 times the amount of deputies as Avalon Station. And then Avalon might get one complaint like every couple months, while Palm Lancaster, because of the settlement agreement and DOJ oversight, they might be getting like 10 to 20, 30 fold of the complaints. And that kind of bogs down the system with the amount of supervisors reviewing and getting that process done.
It's all one department, I guess. Okay, so you're telling me that there's not like specific data around overall number of complaints that are reviewed within or outside of that 30-day time limit? It's just like a yes or no question.
There's certain data that that the commission can request, and we'll do our best to provide that data.
So commissioners, if I may interject, given that we've doubled up with commissioners at this meeting, if you can maybe just a couple of questions and then allow everybody an opportunity, and then we can return to you if you have any follow-up questions. Hopefully within 10 commissioners here, these questions may be answered through their questions. So
We're used to multiple questions from a commissioner, so there's no problem.
okay, I'm just making sure everybody
Anyone
gets an
else?
opportunity. Commissioner Lees?
Thank you. Is there any difference in the process if the complainant has an open case and is a defendant in an open case?
No.
Is,
No, quite often those who are, if I understood your question, someone who's arrested, can they make a complaint? Quite often, that's where they come from. So there's no difference.
I would imagine. And is this the information that is not available to the public? Is it turned over to the district attorney or city attorney in the case?
You mean of the investigation of the complaint?
No, yes. Is the investigation of the complaint given to the prosecuting attorney in the case?
I'm not
where the
sure.
complainant is the defendant?
I'm thinking, I'm not sure, so I don't want to give you the wrong answer. I was thinking if I've ever been asked that. I'm not sure, but I can get back to you on that. Do you know?
If it comes down to like the complainant's attorney receiving that information? Is that
It
correct?
seems like the job of the investigation would be to find anything that would in fact be exculpatory. And so it would be turned over to the defense attorney, but only, I believe, if it was given from the sheriff's department to the prosecuting agency.
When it comes down to a personal complaint, because it's protected under law like POBAR, like we don't just turn over like those investigations without like a subpoena or court order.
And I can follow up for you to give you an accurate, because obviously I hear, and I know exactly what
There
you're
may be
asking.
commissioners over there who know the answer. I don't know.
No, I just don't want to misrepresent
Right.
something.
They don't. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think Brady, I think Brady is a federal constitutional requirement, so I don't think POBAR excuses Brady non-compliance.
Right. The conflict resolution. So there's an opportunity for the complainant to sit down with the captain. Is there any sort of mediator from outside the department who's part of that process?
No, not normally, but there could be.
Okay. That would be an interesting role.
I've done it in the
POC.
past. I've had it where there was another party that was there that contributed to this successful mediation per se.
Okay. And I just wanted to also make a comment. I hope this doesn't sound flippant, but I will believe that the sheriff believes in being as transparent as possible when I see him as the sponsor of a bill to repeal POBAR. And until that, it's very easy to say, I'm as transparent as I have to be when you don't have to be transparent. That's it.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry. Oh, you're fine. Thank you for the presentation. I have two questions, or really a question and a comment. Concerning a time frame. So will you accept a complaint that happened a number of years or maybe
Yes,
even
there's no
months?
expiration date.
There isn't?
No.
Okay. And there was a comment about when the party is in front of a live actual investigator, how that tends to maybe lead into maybe people pulling away from the actual complaint. What's the percentage of that happening?
I don't have that like off the top of my head. But
Does it happen frequently? Does it happen?
So I can understand your question.
Sure.
Someone, what was
I
that?
think Lieutenant Cam alluded to when the process gets to the point where the actual person making the complaint is brought in to have a conversation with the investigator about the allegation, that there's times where that person just either, sure, many different outcomes happen at that moment, but one that he suggested was that they just either don't show up or don't follow through with the complaint. And I was just wondering how many times does that happen?
I would say there's no way to give you that answer. However, also that infers that those people who made a complaint have to come in. They don't. I would say 80% of the complaints that I've seen handled to conclusion, the complaining party never came in. It was done over the phone. It was done over emails. And remember, all these conversations are recorded. And so like me as a captain, when I get a package, I'm listening to every documented interview. Most of them, I would say most, especially with traffic and people's schedules today. In the last 15 years, those that I've reviewed are not in person. They're usually over the phone.
And this is more of a suggestion. So there's a language, and this is about language, obviously, in the report. You have the word exoneration there. And as an exoneree, I just want to give you a little clarification what that word actually means. So to use the term exoneration implies that the person was found guilty, and then that he was then later found to be, that'd be a mistake. So I think your language is almost causing the process, if we're going to sort of use that template you're showing us on the screen here, I hope you're not misleading the public or the audience by using a word that really says these folks have been found guilty, but then that was overturned. So maybe I would just suggest that you look into how you frame that, how you title that section of the document.
so we're currently reviewing our WSCR manual, and that's something that I'll take back to the commission and let them know.
Thank you.
Hey, great questions and comments from our colleagues on the POC. Thank you. On this side, are there any comments, Irma?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, my question concerning this, and just help me understand it. As a civilian, when I look at this, it's telling me that your people will never be found guilty of anything. Am I misunderstanding that? Because I don't see where it's ever saying they're guilty of doing anything on these complaints.
With this, it's just the disposition of the Watchman Service Common Report. But if there's any serious violations when it goes down to a formal discipline, then it'll be sent off for an administrative investigation where they can receive whether reprimand all the way to discharge. And then with this, if I can elaborate more on the review disposition, where employee conduct appears reasonable, where there was no evidence of them violating any law or policy where their conduct was reasonable. And it appears employee conduct could have been better, that they did not violate any law or policy. An example of that is if a deputy goes to a park and gives a little kid a Snickers, then that kid has a nut allergy. Then that would apply, like he could have used better judgment than just giving the kid a Snickers and asking the parent like if the child had any allergies and can receive the candy bar. Then when an employee conduct or that conduct could have been better, like it could be addressed through counseling, the deputy or it's some training. And when it goes down to employee conduct that should have been different, is where they did violate a department policy, such as a deputy running through a school, and then accidentally.
Excuse me, I understand all those examples that you gave, but even if we look at this one that says employee conduct could have been different, it doesn't say that he's done anything wrong. That's the confusion in your categories to me as a citizen. When I look at that, I get the feeling that why am I even filling out this darn thing? Because they're never going to be accused of anything or found guilty of anything. I think the wording could be better because this is scary. And then you're telling me that everything is done at the unit level from the watch commander to the unit commander. So none of these complaints go anywhere. And that's a serious problem when it comes to transparency. And all I ever hear is we can't, that's personal information. I mean, when does it become to a point that you can share information with the public on the outcomes, the findings? Because this is so misleading to people. And then when they ask you, because how many complaints have you gotten about a damn allergy? Those are not the complaints that are coming to you. The complaints that come to you are serious. The police are beating our children. The police are doing all kind of crazy things. So I just need clarification because you know what? When I leave these meetings and people come to me, what in the world did you do today, Coop? I don't have an answer because all I hear is this nonsense about what you cannot share with the public.
When it comes to those serious allegations, where there is some backbone to it, then it gets sent off to administrative investigation. That's when that person is notified that an administrative investigation has been opened. And then that person can follow up with the watch commander or the unit commander regarding that. And then depending on how much they can divulge or the law, then the watch commander or the unit commander can work with that individual. But when it comes down to those wording, I could see how it can be like a little confusing. But right now, there's a committee that's working on revamping the current complaint manual and complaint process, and I'll take that back to them, and we'll look into it.
What percent of these complaints go up to internal affairs? Can you give me a percentage?
I don't have that, but the commission can request it, and we'll do our best to provide that information.
Okay, and then you said you thought it was 3 complaints against these school resource deputies?
We did a cursory search last night, ma'am, and we found 3. Could there be a couple more? Yes, but we're pretty confident with 3 for the last year.
3 in the last year?
Yes, ma'am, 3.
That includes Antelope Valley?
Yes, ma'am, it does. My operations lieutenant was at Palmdale prior to being my operations lieutenant. She ran the people individually. We came up with 3 total for SRDs.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
I just want to make note that state law and other policies use the word sustained in terms of complaints and the findings of validity. And if you're not using the word sustained in any of your categories and the dashboard is not using that word, I just want to echo the frustration of Commissioner Cooper in the lacking transparency of the dashboard, and to ask why in the world is a common sense term like sustain that is used in state policy not used in your categories for transparency's sake, which was your marching orders, and certainly one that we share.
And I'll definitely take that back to the assistant sheriff and the command staff, your concern.
You know, if I could offer something on that, for the probation commission, I spent 35 years in the sheriff's department. I retired as a lieutenant. I've written and investigated a whole bunch of watch commander service comment reports. So I will give you anecdotal stories, but I have a little knowledge in this area. I think part of what we're seeing today, though, is this entire complaint process was put together in excess of 35 years ago. The environment was far different then. And the issue of using the term sustained, I hear exactly what my fellow commissioners are saying. And you're right, those terms, they just didn't use those terms back then in regards to complaints. They did in regards to administrative investigations. So I think the department, I'm glad to hear the department is looking at their manual because they need to. Things need to be adjusted now to the current environment we're living in. But when this was all put together, now I look back at this thinking, boy, we really had a really robust complaint process. And back in 1991 and 1992, it was really robust. Not by today's standards and not by what people are demanding today, and rightfully so. So I'm glad to hear that the department is looking at the terminology because I think it does need to be adjusted. So thank you for, I know this has been difficult because some of the things you're trying to explain, frankly, are hard to explain. I will readily admit, I personally have a real problem with the department investigating itself. I always have, and I do now. And I think maybe we have come to a point where perhaps the Board of Supervisors needs to empower perhaps this commission with the ability to conduct investigations. That would mean we would have to expand our commission. We'd have to expand our employees to have investigators that could do this type of work. But again, the environment has changed, and I think we need to acknowledge that fact, and maybe the time has come to where we do need to have independent investigation of complaints. But we're not there today, but maybe it's time to get that wheel rolling.
Really great comments, JP. I think it's even worse because if the department investigates itself and then provides no explanation to the complainant about how and why they found the complaint wasn't true, that doesn't advance transparency or trust at all. And I just want to ask, I understand that third parties can't discover anything they want from an officer's personnel file. But is it your position that someone who makes a complaint can't be given a brief explanation why their complaint was denied or found not to be true or whatever? Is the statement that the law prohibits giving a brief explanation just to the complainant about why their complaint was denied?
Well, this will speak for the department.
Okay.
Go ahead. And I'll say mine.
Sure. And with that aspect, it all depends on what type of a case it is. And then any person can go into the station and request to speak to a unit commander and have a sit down and a conversation with them. And then it all depends on the circumstances of the case, and it's a case by case basis, but definitely with transparency, they can sit down with the unit commander and go over the circumstances of why certain findings or certain dispositions were decided on the case. And also, if a person does not like the disposition on the case, they can go to the ombudsman, the county ombudsman, And then, and the county ombudsman office is another layer of oversight that they can, have a remedy to their concern.
So is the answer that you can give a brief explanation to the complainant about their complaint?
Sorry, what was that question, sir?
Is the answer yes? You actually can provide a brief explanation just to the person who filed the complaint about why their complaint was denied?
It all depends on the case. Yeah.
I think there's going to be obviously some further, and I see it, but I disagree with a little of the mannerisms, but I'm not an expert in that law and risk management bureau that does that. So we don't want to give you the wrong information. However, to what he just said is many times those who've made complaints at the end of the process, I call them personally. They come in and we sit down and we talk about it, right, wrong, or indifferent, and we discuss the situation. And so that happens all the time. Now we're talking about a codified process that needs to be grounded in law for the department. And so I can't portray to be that guy. And so we will follow up with you for that because I understand what you're asking. And Ms. Cooper, I agree with you. And so there's many things that we agree with here, but we'll elevate this to a higher level because I'm not sure of the exact verbiage in the law to give you an answer that's wrong, sir, because that would be incompetent of me.
No, I
and although
understand.
we have differences on different things, and I push back on those of us that do have integrity can investigate ourselves. I understand the appearance of impropriety, but a lot of us have sacrificed a lot to do what we do. And there's a lot of great men and women that don't want our badge to be tarnished. And the sheriff's empowering us to be transparent, to be here, to be present, to change the school resource deputy training, to do all the things to make us better, to be more in compliance with what you like. And so I think that we need to work together more instead of being divisive because we need to do, like Ms. Cooper, everything you said. As a lieutenant, I asked those questions. I said, what the heck is this? I said, shoulda, coulda, woulda. And I said, shoulda is guilty, coulda is maybe. And so we've asked those questions, but in the large organization and with different leadership changes, sometimes those processes become onerous, right? But right now, Sheriff Luna's looking at those. And he's open to making us better. And so that's why I pushed back on when you said about transparency, because he said, let's do this better. Let's find those ways. And so it just takes a while to get there. But I think we agree. And it doesn't really answer your question about the formality of saying what the details are.
No, but I understand what you're saying. I have a lot of respect for you, so I really appreciate you engaging. But my comment would be, can you really collaborate with an agency that refuses to give you any information?
I give you everything you ask for. I write more memos of this sort body than anybody I know. And I say that in jest.
No, I understand.
But I think, sir, I think that we can do better. We can work together because that's our marching orders. Now, when it comes to the legal things, I won't portray myself to be that because then I could give you a wrong answer.
No, I
But we are open and willing to do that.
I do appreciate it, and I'm going to take you up on that because I do see some positive changes. I agree with you.
I appreciate that, sir.
And I know I'm demanding and impatient sometimes.
But
I will say this, that with the law, I mean, the department and the unions lobbied for all those secrecy laws. So when people come in, we're just following the law. Well, yes, but you all lobbied and pushed for those laws.
Yeah, like I said, I just have to follow the law in my position, and I can't
I know.
jeopardize the department.
Anyone else? Luis?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on, some feedback on the dashboard. So I'm looking at the dashboard and kind of to those data categories, building trust or community trust and legitimacy as one of the pillars, which I know Sheriff Luna is promoted. You as a oversight commissioner, as a resident of LA County, I look at these, categories, could be better, should be better. I think those are which feedback to the team that's reviewing the language. I really believe that language can be kind of elevated to perhaps maybe it's like, I mean, I come from a behavioral health background. maybe the area is like needs improvement or, just some clear language. So, if a person's looking up on this or a parent, is looking at this scorecard or dashboard, they can maybe have a data dictionary to what it should be, should be better or, better. What does that mean in today's language? And so I think that's really important, just as a kind of a basic first step I mean, I'm all in support of promoting data and dashboards which I think in technology and law enforcement is still kind of getting up to speed in many ways, and different jurisdictions have different ways of promoting data, such as this. And I think it's vital for the sheriff's department to, vet this kind of simple language. And actually the exonerated is in this data category too. So it just gives can be confusing, to the average resident.
Yes, sir. No, we definitely agree with that. And then I'm going to take it back to the board that's changing our current WSCR complaint process manual. And then I'm going to tell them that a better explanation and it needs to be placed in there. Yeah, because I could see why it can be confusing.
And in short term, you'll have the SRD website will be up and live. It's close, correct? It's close. And then also in that quarterly report that you'll be receiving, you'll know the number of complaints for SRDs per quarter. So we won't be playing catch up. So I think that'll help us get ahead. But this shoulda, coulda thing, we've talked about this for a long time. So we're actually together on it because it is a little ambiguous. And basically to make clarity in today's environment is could have been better as minor, should have as you're guilty, to help you with that. But we agree.
Should we take some public comment? Because the hour's getting late.
Thank you, commissioners. If we have anyone in the room who'd like to give public comment, please approach the podium. We're giving public comment on this item, which is the LA Sheriff's Department complaint process. Thank you for that presentation. And if you'd like to give a public comment online, please use the little raise your hand function. It's a tiny hand at the bottom of your WebEx page. If you're on the phone, dial *3, and we will call you by your phone number or your name. We're going to do 3 minutes. And Ismael, I'll ask if we can put the clock back up.
Ron Dow.
Go right ahead.
Ron Dow, National Association of Black and Criminal Justice, Compton Southwest Chapter. Speaking of positive changes, Commissioner Kennedy, this is a major one. We've been asking for this type of presentation on the complaint process in Compton for 20 years. This is the first time that I've seen it all condensed and accurately reflect what it is in one place. So I applaud Lieutenant Kim for this. I would also suggest that upon request, you come back and make this same presentation to the citizens and the residents of Compton. I mean, it's been that long. Even though I see that it's very weak, you can see that it's weak too, but still it's better than what we've had before. And in terms of refusing complaints, I would say this. In Compton, we've noted that people have complained of being discouraged from making complaints. It's not an outright refusal. And when you go into the Compton station, you can understand why. I would encourage anyone to visit that station. The first thing you're going to see is a row of 4 seats in there, in an open space. One is broke, and it actually is dangerous, plastic seatings. And then you run into this plexiglass screen that you can't barely see what's on the other side. And if you are in that environment coming in with a complaint, you're going to be pretty discouraged. My response would be to turn around and walk out. So there's more to it than just an active receiving a complaint. There's this whole atmosphere of being discouraged from making complaints. So your comments, Commissioner Cooper and Harris, are well taken. They're very accurate. So I would suggest that maybe taking a closer look at those things. And also, there must be a place somewhere for a discussion of NEBRIS, the National Incident-Based Reporting System, somewhere, because I understood there was a federal, the DOJ required this thing 2 years ago, yet I haven't heard much discussion here locally about it. It would give much more information publicly. And also, I'm confused about the Brady list. I'm not sure exactly how that works anymore. I thought I knew. Right now, I don't know who is the custodian of it, who's responsible for maintaining it, and its utility and its value to the situation that we're faced with here. Because you can never tell who's on it. You can never tell who's providing the information. So there's a lot of future discussion that needs to take place here. But I'm going to invite Lieutenant Kim to come out and give a public presentation on just what he gave today, because it's a start and will clear up a lot of things in people's minds in Compton.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is John Davis. I'm the president of Avalon Gardens Community Association. We right here in Willowbrook. Our station is the Linwood Station. I'm just going to piggyback on on the officer when when he said community relation, working with police officers, working with the community. Here in Willowbrook, we work with our sheriffs and we do work with the community. One thing as president, when residents have complaints, we want to make sure that the complaints are being followed up. So we make sure when we meet with our captains and they come to community meetings, I can stand by the captain at Linwood and he asks the community if there's complaints that have not been followed up, let me know and we'll follow up right now. That is based on building that relationship with community and sheriffs. So I give applause to our Linwood station because our captain does come out, meet with the community, talk to the community, and make sure any concerns that he follows up with that situation. As president, I make sure as community, as residents, if you have a complaint, file the complaint. Don't come and say, well, the sheriff did this. And then I ask the question, did you file a complaint? Oh, no, I did not. Well, we want to make sure that it works both hands. Now, so if you're going to complain and make your complaint. But we want to make sure that in due diligence, the complaint is followed up. I do say that every station is different. What the officer was saying, we know, and let's not be blind for the fact that every department, from the county to the city, every department is shorthanded. So let's not sleep on that. So when the officers talk about they're shorthanded, yes, it's every department shorthanded. Public Works are shorthanded. Even I'm sure. So I just wanted to speak on the behalf as a community president that works in the community, that's boots on the ground. I don't have to do it on the computer. I go door to door, knock on these doors, and I talk to our residents and to get the residents involved in their community where they live in. So I know this is totally it's different from the 90s, as Mr. Harris said. We in 21st century, so a lot of things have changed. And a lot of things as public wants more demand of. So it's different from the 90s. So we have an obligation to work together. Can't put everything on one entity. It takes all of us. Even you guys sit at the commission. So hopefully one day I see you at community meetings talking to residents. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Do we have any online public comments? Okay. Oh, Lena Mallet, we're going to unmute you and you'll have 3 minutes. That's the only hand raised. Okay, I think we'll close public comment. Thank you to those of you. Gabe, go ahead, Lena, you can begin.
Okay, sorry, thank you. Lena Mallet with the Children's Defense Fund. For years, community and legislators have known that the police cannot and absolutely should not police themselves. And I think this presentation today made that abundantly clear. And I think my ask mainly is just for the oversight body, both oversight bodies here today, along with the Sheriff's Department, since you claim you agree with most of the commissioner's sentiments around the lack of transparency, the inherent subjectivity, and the process's overall ineffectiveness. that you all move the board to push for an independent third-party investigatory entity that manages all complaints that are now held within IAB.
Thank you. So we're going to move to item number 3, miscellaneous. This agenda item is for matters not posted on the agenda to discuss or place on a future meeting agenda for action. If you would like to provide public comment on the next item for general comment, please raise your hand now on WebEx. If you are in the room, you can approach the front of the room to get in line. So since we have 2 commissions, any commissioners on your side would like to address Chair Kennedy for future items?
Doesn't look like it.
Thank you. Commissioners here? Hey,
The final public comment or?
I don't see anyone in the room. If there's anyone in the room who'd like to make general public comment, please approach the front of the room. And we'll ask you to raise your hands on WebEx or dial *6. Do we have any hands raised? You can approach, Mr. Bell. Yes, this is general public comment. I just wanted to get a sense about whether we have folks with hands raised on WebEx. Okay. All right, great. Let's begin.
Okay, thank you once again. My name is Thomas Bell. I'll be real quick this time. I just wanted to once again stress the importance of having officers around at the schools and acknowledging the good jobs that they do. Recently, we had a graduation. I know you guys probably heard a little bit about it on the news, but I was actually there. At this graduation, we had 29 detained youth there. And as well, the other side, I don't know the exact number, but it was juveniles that had already left the probation department but came back for graduation. During that time, you know, if you read about it, what happened, we had an incident that happened. Now, during this incident, our SCOs, our armed officers, handled the situation well. They're the ones who went out there and broke up the situation, detained people, searched cars, but you didn't hear about that in the news. Our officers went out there and did a job that they necessarily didn't have to do because we was able to get our 29 youth out of the situation safely. Now, the Disney Center did have security. They did not show. You don't, the LACO also, don't quote me on it. There you go. That's what I was trying to say. Don't quote me on this, but LACO, I'm hearing, also hired security, who also did not show. So it was just the probation officers until LAPD showed up out there handling the situation. Now, we were not there. If our SCOs were not there, and those 29 kids that we had would have also gotten involved, along with the parents, along with the people who came from outside to cause the incident, it would have been melee. It would have been all types of trouble. The fact that they were there, that we were there, and our SCOs were there, helped get the 29 safely out, who knew what was going on at the time, but they were in the back safe. No one was hurt. The SCOs actually helped save the other kids as well. That wasn't technically their responsibility because their responsibility was the 29, kept a kid from another youth from getting dragged out and beaten, who the people who was actually there for, because they were there. So having officers in this area on the scene helped the situation, but you won't hear about that on the news. You won't hear about that anywhere else. They saved that young man's life, in my personal opinion. But also, I just wanted to just point out the fact that without the knowledge and the skill set of those officers, it would have been just a lot worse. And that's what we have in the schools as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we don't have any general public comment online, so I will.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. During visits to the hall, during visits to the offices, and during my visits to the court, I encourage deputy probation officers and all staff in the department to use our forum on general comment to share the good. And I'm glad you did today. Before I adjourn the meeting or ask the meeting to be adjourned, I'd like to thank all the staff that I see out here working hard on the computers. I couldn't help but think that what a professional organization this looks like. So thank you. Lieutenant Kim, Captain Didrik, thank you for standing in the line of fire here. It's, it's that whole saying, don't shoot the messenger, right? It's tough to be in front of this forum, but it also gives you an opportunity to state your case and go back and share with your colleagues that there's some work that needs to be done. Thank you all for joining us and sharing your comments. May I have a motion
I
to
just
adjourn?
before we close, I would just like to make a comment. We are here today under the pride flag flying over a county building. This is LGBTQ plus Pride Month in part because of protests that originated in protest against police abuse, not just in Stonewall in New York, but at Sunset Junction here in Los Angeles, 2+ years before Stonewall. And I want to thank the Sheriff's Department for its participation in this month's Pride activities, but also just to thank the county for this effort of inclusion. It's meaningful, it shows progress, and the LASD's own progress in this area is noteworthy, as was their participation in this month's activities. Thank you.
So may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. To do two separate motions.
Well, let's start one with the PLC.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Commissioner Kakani and Commissioner Meredith have first and second the motion. Commissioners, please unmute yourselves and vote with a voice vote. Anyone? Aye. Okay, unanimously carried.
This is a first for us. Can I have a motion to adjourn? We just usually adjourn. Second, voice vote, as Eduardo said. Aye. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone. Yeah.